Yo, 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 we good? Let's see. Should be. Boom. Boom, boom. Testing, testing. Okay, should be good. Hopefully it's good. Well, what is up, people? Actually, good afternoon if you're anywhere in Europe. It's currently 10 p.m. where I'm at. Now, I wanted to go to sleep, but turns out I'm actually going to war. So I have to say something about this. Young people need to rise up, in my opinion. This is a bunch of BS. Too early to cuss. I'm so tired. I'm actually not even here. I'm asleep in your bed with your mom. I'm not joking. Go check. Okay, so I wanted to watch this and give my 2 cents tomorrow because I already gave my piece yesterday. Basically, my opinion, Zelensky will not want peace. He wants to win the war. He wants Putin to pay in some way, shape, or form. But I don't think they're taking into consideration the fact that nuclear war is a thing now, and it's not like in the past. You're not going to destroy just a country. It's really dangerous, and I don't know. Nobody has been talking about yesterday. The outside dome that protects Chernobyl has been breached by a drone. Supposedly, it's or whatever the fuck the word it is. It's supposed to be from Russia. That's what they think. It's not official information, and it has penetrated all the way through the first layers. And apparently the problem is it's so high radiation over there, and the materials don't really fit the criteria to be easily patched. And nobody can stay up there long enough to patch it, and radiation is just leaking out. So is that a threat by Russia, or could that be just an inside job by EU to prolong the war and incite fear and hatred towards Putin? My opinion, that could also be true given what's happened in the last 24 to 48 hours. In the beginning, I didn't think Zelensky was that corrupt. I thought he was just an egomaniac and he wanted Putin to face justice, as he should, to be honest, as he should. But now I'm starting to think it's a lot of corruption going on. I mean, this could just very well be an opportunity for the EU. Maybe it's not. It sounds conspiratorial, but hear me out. They could have seen this outcome or seeded this outcome just to drag Russia into a war of attrition and weakened it for whatever means they want to achieve. Now, I believed from the start that they need to end the war, like Trump said, immediately, as fast as possible. The war didn't need to happen in the first place. Just give up some land. The population from Ukraine just migrate somewhere else to be safe and then be safer than sorry. And it is what it is. You can't argue with a maniac that has nuclear weapons. Let's not poke the bear for no reason. Let's not even talk about the young people that do not want to die in wars. And this is specifically the reason why I had to say something about this, because apparently they want the whole of Europe to go to war with Russia now. It's not enough that they're sending weapons and such. They want troops too. And I hope I'm wrong about this, but they're probably gonna court martial or whatever the fuck it's called when they enlist you forcefully. I mean, I do not want to be any cog in nobody's war machine. I do not want to die for someone's war. Let's see what they actually have to say about this. This is outrageous, in my opinion.
It looks like there's a bunch of other people arming.
And I hope the audio is going to be good this time, because last time, some people said it was okay, others said it wasn't. I don't know.
Ukraine now.
With boots on the ground and planes in the air. The UK is prepared to back this. With boots on the ground and planes in the air, together with others, Europe must do the heavy lifting. But to support peace in our continent and to succeed, this effort must have strong US backing.
Man, that escalated quickly. It sure did. It's escalating very quickly. Things are.
Instead of just giving up some land. And apparently Zelensky was told yesterday to specifically, actually Zelensky was insisting on coming to the White House, apparently. They could have done the deal remote. And he just wanted to be there maybe to put on some propaganda and some face.
They're going fast.
Just give up some land. Get the populace out of there. Easy. Nobody else needs to die.
Had a very good and frank discussion. Basically, we've discussed everything that is around peace through strength. And of course, security guarantees are of utmost importance for Ukraine, but we need comprehensive security guarantees. This includes that we have to put Ukraine in a position of strength, that it has the means to fortify and protect itself from the economic survival to the military resilience. It's basically turning Ukraine into a steel porcupine that is indigestible for potential invaders.
Lovely. Lady, are you going to fight in the war? Are you going to be on the front lines? I'm just asking. Are any of you going to be there? No, you're going to be on a cushion somewhere with your bellies up, full, warm and cozy. You guys know, right? People in UK are getting stabbed midday for their phone. You can't pray next to an abortion clinic in Germany. Even if you're in the house, whatever radius, 500 meters around or whatever. I mean, what are we talking about here? Democracy and shit.
A steel porcupine.
Therefore, the focus is not only on the military supply, but also, for example, security.
Oh, how the West has fallen. Jesus.
The energy system, and making sure that over time this is a strong and resilient country. The second element I brought to the table is that we urgently have to rearm Europe. And for that I will present a comprehensive plan how to rearm Europe on the 6th of March when we have our European Council to the leaders.
And what level of spending should individual countries make to defence?
One thing is very sure, we have to have a surge in defence. We really have to step up massive.
Lovely. Where's the money going to come from? I know. You, me, everyone else, not them. People don't have money for groceries right now. Owning a car is expensive as fuck.
The defense expenditure.
I don't speak British, so I don't really know what he said, but I think he's asking something about spending money.
And for that, we need a clear, big plan from the European Union for the member states and, of course, for common European domains. Yeah. Like, for example, advanced air shields. We need a common European approach. But also the member states need more fiscal space to do a surge in defense.
Have you won the argument with European colleagues about stepping up to the plate in terms of money?
Absolutely. We all have understood that after a long time of underinvestment, it is now of utmost importance to step up the defense investment for a prolonged period of time.
So this was
for
today.
The security of the European Union, and we need in the geostrategic environment in which we live to prepare for the worst, and therefore stepping up the defenses.
What message would you like to take to America? What?
Meaning, be prepared for Russia to attack the whole of Europe. They're probably gonna incite this some way. I mean, NATO is almost the whole of Europe, right?
What message would you like to give to America after today's meeting?
Uh-oh.
We are ready, together with you, to defend democracy, to defend...
I just told you what democracy it is that they have in the UK and Germany.
And
that's not democracy.
Principle.
Also, the UK is a monarchy. So.
That there is a rule of law that you cannot invade your neighbor and bully your neighbor, or you cannot change borders
yes, agree.
with
it's
force.
shitty.
And it's in our common interest to prevent future wars that we make very clear that these rules count and that democracy, that together the democracies are standing up for that. The possibility is of...
Do you people want to make Europe uninhabitable? I mean...
Of course that we have the wider Europe approach. So today we had the Norwegians, the Turks. Of course, we were hosted here by the UK.
Who elected her? I don't know.
Apparently the people, but given the level of corruption.
Canada was also there, so the wider concept of Europe stepping up.
No one?
And what does that mean in terms of numbers of soldiers on the ground? How many European soldiers on the ground?
United States.
Dozen?
We stand up for the common interest. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just gonna
couple dozen. EU Parliament? Okay, I get it. Yep, there you go. And, wow. And the EU delegations?
Brother.
It's so hypocritical. They're talking about defending democracy when they're banning political parties on the right side.
Exactly. This is, exactly what happened in America. This is exactly, it actually started in Europe.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Like anybody trying to make an advocacy for...
These guys are OGs at it.
For democracy, when at the same time they're censoring speech.
Yeah, they're literally arguing water is not wet.
I'm just not really getting that. I'm not really hearing it. Nope. It's delusional. Yeah, they're banning people for speech, put people in jail for speech. Yep.
Yeah. You can't. I just talked about it yesterday in the UK also. You can't make someone depressed online for a comment or whatever the fuck, because they're gonna sue you.
Good and
they're gonna
frank discussion.
Bigger things to fry here. That's fine. I mean, like I've been on the favor of that before, but like I'm still not going to go and listen to somebody talk about democracy. You want to use an argument against me, and you got to tell me that I have to agree with your bad argument just because it's for the greater good. Fuck that. No, I'm not going to go and say this.
But save the children. It's for the children.
The sky is green or purple because there's some greater good. Fuck that. No.
Secure our future.
First, we will keep the military aid flowing and keep increasing the economic pressure on Russia to strengthen Ukraine now. Second, we agreed that any lasting peace must ensure Ukraine's sovereignty and security, and Ukraine must be at the table. Third, in the event of a peace deal, we will keep boosting Ukraine's own defensive capabilities to deter any future invasion.
Nope.
Fourth, we will go further to develop a coalition of the willing to defend a deal in Ukraine and to guarantee the peace. Not every nation will feel able to contribute, but that can't mean that we sit back. Instead, those willing will intensify planning now with real urgency. The UK is prepared to back this with boots on the ground and planes in the air.
This is what we saw before.
Together with others, Europe must do the heavy lifting.
So people talking about war.
Did he misspoke? Because he said listing, not lifting. Or maybe my ears are fucked up.
War 3 now.
But to support peace in our continent and to succeed, this effort must have strong US backing. We're working with the US on this point after my meeting with President Trump last week. And let me be clear, we agree...
You were working on it before Zelensky fucked it.
...with the President on the urgent need for a durable peace, now we need to deliver together. Finally, we agreed that leaders will meet again very soon to keep the pace behind these actions and to keep working towards this shared plan. We are at a crossroads in history today.
You had a way out. Easy.
This is not a moment for more talk.
I mean, not easy. It's already 2-3 years of war or whatever the fuck. 3, I think.
It's time to act, time to step up and lead, and to unite around a new plan for a just and enduring peace.
Well,
thank you.
So keep on killing on.
We'll see what happens, right? France is discussing about sharing nuclear capabilities with UK to remove dependence on the US to strengthen our alliance. Yeah, maybe that'd be a better idea. UK, France, all their big countries are broken. The EU except Germany, which is on the brink of financial collapse. You can check their annual budgets. It's all negative. They're scrambling.
The whole of Europe, technically the whole civilized world, is at the brink of collapse right now.
After that meeting.
That's exactly why this needs to stop. Trump said it best. We are spending money we don't have on something that doesn't need to be spent on. The war. It doesn't need to go on.
Yeah, but they're probably stressed out because we weren't going to put money into it. Yeah.
We're so happy.
Damn, she's loud.
None of them are going to be on the front line. Dying. I mean, whatever. Zelensky is visiting.
There he is.
Thank you.
In his pajamas, too.
That's a lot of them. He is short. I mean, it's fair to say he definitely is short.
Really?
Let's see if there's any more of this. Yeah, here it is.
It would make sense if he's short. That's the reason he's so spiteful.
Prime Minister Starmer said specifically it will mean UK boots on the ground and planes in the air. From your answer, I am taking that that will not mean Canadian boots on the ground. Is that, just to finish, is that the case?
I haven't heard anything about this in Romania. Again, we're literally underneath Ukraine. I mean, most likely we would be the first in line, or Poland, because we may not present as much interest. That's why Romania is pretty much the safest, and Poland is also. But Romania is it's pretty good here. You don't get stabbed, you don't get mugged on the street, you can still go out at night. I mean, it's fine. Could be better, could be worse. It's fine.
Or are you
hell of a lot better than UK and Germany.
Considering Canadian boots on the ground in the form of peacekeepers
Even
down the road?
with less money and shit.
Every step of the way, Canada has looked at the ways it can best help. And as I've said
let's give them some trans soldiers.
a few days ago, everything's on the table. We know that the Canadian military has ways that it can contribute. We're not going to get ahead of the discussions on how to keep a peace that isn't yet in place. But Canada will be there and is open to doing what is necessary, but those will be decisions taken in the coming years by Canadians and their government.
I wonder how big like the Canadian military really is, because like if I look at where is this
not so big.
Military spending by country, and I look at this, Canada. I mean, like, is that Russia? Is that $86 billion? Right? I mean, that's a lot. And the U.S.
Others.
US spends almost $1 trillion. So Canada's 600, 700K. Yeah, we protect them all. Yeah, I feel like that's kind of what happens is the US spends a lot of money and we protect other people too.
I would be annoyed as fuck to be in India. I mean, it's one of the superpowers of the planet, but most people there are living in poverty or borderline.
It's very small for the size of the country. Iceland could invade Canada. Damn, that would suck. That'd be nuts, yeah.
Why?
Do you feel like the popular sentiment in our generation is that we just want to stay out of it? Yeah, no, I think that the sentiment that a lot of young men and like young people have nowadays is that they don't want to
die for no reason.
spend their tax money on bullshit that's happening on the other side of the world.
That's in their case. In our case, in Europe, it's die. We do not want to do that.
I think that's true with Israel. I think it's true with Ukraine. I think it's true in general. And that's actually the end of it. They don't care about geopolitical ramifications. They don't care about the, like second order effects of this. These are people who can't afford food, they can't afford rent, and they feel like they can't afford basic human dignity. So why the fuck are they going to care about what land Russia has when they can't even have land to live on? That's the truth. That's really where people are at. And I understand people might say that's the wrong opinion to have. That's wrong.
No, it's not. It's literally your problem, your war. You wanted to fight the fight. You fight the fight. If you lose, at least you put up a good fight. If it makes you even any bit happier.
Wrong bit. That's fine. You can tell somebody that, but when somebody doesn't have a house, they're barely able to afford their fucking house, they're just not going to listen to you, right? And that's it. So yeah, it's nearsighted and dumb. How can you expect them to be smart when they can't even afford to live? Really? How can you expect that? Like, it's so naive to think like that.
It's not about stupidity.
It is. People care about their own lives. This is the way that, like, so there's like concentric circles of giving a fuck, right? First, you care about yourself, then you care about your family, then you care about your community, then you care about your country, then you care about the world, right? Like, this is a general thing. Now, it's not always like this, but I think this is a general statement of, like, people's different tier lists. So if you still can't take care of this inner circle, what the fuck are you doing thinking about this? Well, you're not. And so that's the truth. And that's what a lot of people that are around my age, and especially people that are younger, think. No, you can't help others without helping yourself. Yeah.
In the past, wars were fought so much because of propaganda. It was so easy for the government to brainwash their civilians into thinking the other guys are monsters for some reason. One reason or another. It may have been the case in some wars, but not all of them. Now, these days, it's so hard and almost impossible, let's say, to brainwash as much of a population as in the past. There are some people that are still morons and they're easily brainwashed, but there are also a lot of smart people that, again, like I said, they do not want to die in a stupid war for no reason.
Isn't that divided based on a heat map? Oh, that.
I mean, you've got to know from being in the fucking military. You know, I spent 2 years, 7 months, 6 days, 7 hours in the fucking army, and I worked directly with the
God bless him.
Yeah.
And I learned, a lot about this shit. And I've been around military people all my life. And one of the things that they're up for is having the most realistic field exercises they can.
Well, what are you trying to get at?
Well, okay, my point is, a lot of these conflicts and shit, and even what's going on now, they put boots on the ground as I shit you not, a fucking military exercise. That's why we're going in there and stepping on, countries like Iraq. Iraq didn't even expect to be attacked.
Yeah.
And Afghanistan, that was a lost cause. That was just an asshole move.
Yeah.
But they, and people don't know about this, but we've got troops on the ground in Congo and in Africa.
Well, you remember I was telling you about this with fucking that game, that Metal Gear Solid game I was talking to you about.
Yeah, you and I talked.
Yeah.
They don't need to do that anymore. I mean.
Yeah, that's and they've got active combat.
It's a full-on war. Yeah. It's not an exercise anymore. It doesn't need a cover-up.
Her brother took a spear.
Technically, this time they actually need freedom.
Yeah.
Like literally.
I didn't even know they were in the Congo. This is way back in the day. But that is what is going on with a lot of this fucking...
with the money. Yeah, no, I get it. I get it.
It's the money, and it's a field exercise.
Yeah.
That happened between President Biden...
by the way, God bless Zach for letting his pop give his 2 cents from time to time. I'm sure the guy loves it.
And the Ukrainian president.
And he's very insightful, to be honest.
Back in June, what do we know about that conversation, Courtney?
Yeah, that's right, Kate. So in this conversation, President Biden called President Zelensky to tell him about a roughly $1 billion package of additional equipment and weapons for the Ukrainian military coming from the United States. During the course of the call, President Zelensky continued, according to a number of officials who we spoke with who are familiar with the call, President Zelensky continued to talk about the additional equipment and weapons and support that he and his military needed. According to these officials, they said that President Biden finally just got frustrated and lost his temper and told President Zelensky, look, you could be a little bit more grateful. The reason that this story is interesting to us and is something that we are reporting on.
See, yeah, we need to have these crash outs publicly.
Bro, how the fuck are you gonna make Biden and be enraged? I mean, he's half asleep literally half the time. So he must have been really pissed to actually wake up from a dream.
Yeah, I want to see more public crash outs.
And officials were speaking to us about is because it shows that all these months ago,
why didn't nobody
President
talk
Biden
about this?
already realized that there was going to be a point where the American people, members of Congress...
Because the press was busy kiss-assing Zelensky for being on the front lines. God bless his soul. He's the best of us. Everyone, every man alive aspires to be like him.
Congress, where people would start potentially pushing back on all these billions and billions of dollars of aid and equipment that the U.S. has been providing to Ukraine. And he knew that the narrative out there needed to be that the Ukrainian people and President Zelensky were grateful for it if this the support was going to continue at that same level.
Maybe he was grateful. Maybe he's just having PTSD and he can't effectively show his emotions. But I don't think that's the case. Not of his body language, not of his verbalism, not in the past nor yesterday with Trump. I mean, he's very, very passive aggressive and he's talking from above for some reason.
Okay. All right.
I think that's probably true to an extent. There's a lot.
You're asking for help. Have some humility.
Us people
really
support
interesting reporting. You can find more on our website, NBCNews.com. Molly Hunter, thank you.
What about Israel then? No.
Technically, he's acting like a white Karen. Like he feels entitled to everything.
I don't know why people can't understand this. The reason why there's not as much criticism about Israel is because it gets labeled as anti-Semitism. It's like hating Jews. That's the main reason why people aren't bringing that shit up. Now, I could be wrong, and there could be a little bit more to it, but I think that's a big fucking reason. That's a massive reason why people don't go and talk about it. And it shouldn't. Well, that's it.
2 soldiers right there.
Right? Funny that. It's emotional argumentation. Yeah, and the best argument isn't an argument, so keep that in mind. So, yeah. King Charles, this is it too? Well, yeah. I mean, it looks like Britain's really trying to help Zelensky a lot.
It's amazing the guy is still alive with how many health problems he has. I don't think I need to link you guys the video. There's only one of you here. So let's go to the next one.
Scrambling to revive talks on Ukraine's future.
Maybe we can go to bed without having a meltdown.
Here with me now for the latest is the White House National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz. Thank you so much for being here, sir. I want to ask for your view on what the Ukrainian president...
Imagine that. They need to give up some land. Imagine that. To keep the rest of your land, you need to give up some.
Said after that Oval Office meeting. He repeatedly went online. He thanked the U.S. and President Trump for the help that the U.S. is giving, saying it is crucial to have the president's support, that no one wants peace more than we do. Is that enough for President Trump to get things back on track?
Nope.
Well, the president took calls from Prime Minister Starmer. Yesterday, he's also taken a call from Prime Minister Meloni of Italy. President Zelensky is with those European leaders now. Those European leaders are talking to him directly about getting to the negotiation table. What does he need to see to actually negotiate with us and negotiate with the Russians, go to confidence building measures, go to a ceasefire, and bring this horrific war to an end? And what was so, I think, stunning to all of us in the Oval Office was that it was not clear Zelensky was going to go to negotiations at all, that he would ever.
He does not want any of that. He wants a W. And he wants the world to help him or fight for him.
Be able to negotiate.
Or rather in his place.
With Putin, and whether he shared our goal of ending this war. So what I made clear as Secretary Rubio, and I said, look, this cannot proceed, was that this was a huge missed opportunity for him and for his country. He could have left the White House on Friday on the heels of an engagement with President Macron of France, with President...
Imagine being on the front lines with hope in arm's reach that the war is going to end and you're not going to die, and hearing that your president does not give a fuck about you. He wants you to keep on keeping on. I mean, I know some, I presume, some are ready to die, but I don't think all of them. I would actually take a gander. Most wouldn't.
With Prime Minister Starmer.
I also think that there's a lot of people that are probably happy now that the EU is backing up Ukraine. Because now it's like, basically, I think that the perspective is that this is the way I think a lot of like voters here feel in the U.S. is that why are we putting all this money into it when the EU isn't putting enough money into it? Right? I mean, and again, I'm not like trying to repeat that shit.
To be fair, if there was any time a guy would look reptilian, I'm not saying anything. But his
about how like we paid more money than the EU did or anything else, but I'm saying that's the way that people see it.
The lady kind of looks funny too.
They were talking about European boots on the ground, security guarantees for Ukraine, a positive movement towards ending this war, and having Ukraine and the United States being bound together for a generation economically. But what we made clear was that could not proceed, at least for now. And President Trump said in his announcement on X, when President Zelensky is ready to truly...
I think that's the first guy I've ever heard, or anyone for that matter, that called Twitter X without stuttering.
...engage for peace, he's welcome back anytime.
So what does the president need? What does President Trump need? Does he need a public apology? Does he want a phone call? Can you be specific on how to make that happen?
Sexy dance.
Well, you know, it wasn't clear to us that President Zelensky was ready to negotiate in good faith towards an end to this war. You know, for us, kind of talking about the details and demands of security guarantees before, as President Trump said, look, I don't know that we can get both sides of the table at this point. And
I said this yesterday too. I don't know how it's not a security guarantee if America is going to have interest in the land, whichever it's going to be. If they want soil or actual land, they're going to have invested interest in the country. Therefore, they want to protect their investment. That's somewhat of a guarantee, at least.
And you can't kind of trash the other side litigating through the history of this conflict if we're going to bring both sides to the table.
Yeah, he's right about that.
And so coming to the Oval Office, with the body language, the shaking of head, the kind of the arms crossed, we found it incredibly disrespectful. We were ready to sign that deal. I want to address directly that this was some type of ambush is absolutely false. We had negotiated the minerals deal in the weeks prior. It was difficult, but it was done and finalized and ready to be signed in the East Room.
So since you've been talking about his body language and his...
So they had that shit all planned out? All that got burned up. Wow.
Again, I don't know where I heard this, but it was stated before. They could have done this remotely. Nobody needed to travel. Zelensky insisted on coming to the White House and having a press conference. And then, or not having a press conference, but I think Trump insisted on having the press conference. And I'm pretty sure everything led up to that mini meltdown. That was just one part of what we saw.
His approach. I do want to ask about your view of Volodymyr Zelensky, because right after the Ukraine war happened, after Russia invaded Ukraine, to be more specific, you were on CNN and you called Zelensky a 21st century Churchill because of how he was leading the fight against Russian tyranny. And yesterday you called him, or at least you compared him to an ex-girlfriend who wants to argue everything that you said 9 years ago rather than moving forward. Is that really how you see it now? And do you see it?
Yes, he's acting like a stupid child.
At all?
I said that many times.
I'm not saying Zelensky's like that, but like, fucking based.
He's acting like a 14-year-old butthurt kid.
It's fucking funny.
That's
funny.
The perspective that he was trying to put out there, which is that he does not trust Vladimir Putin, and he feels that he needs some kind of security guarantee.
Well, Donna, I would also point out, if we want to do a history lesson on Churchill, that he stood and fought for his people. President Zelensky stood and fought for Ukraine. But Churchill was also voted out of office in 1945. He was a man for a moment, but he did not then transition England into the next phase. And it's unclear whether President Zelensky, particularly after what we saw Friday, is ready to transition to Ukraine to an end to this war and to negotiate and have to compromise. Yeah. And what President Trump...
Can they have some type of way of getting him off of being a president? Voting him off? I mean, I heard him say that he would step down if that's what the people would want. But I think it needs to call to a vote. I mean, let's have a poll.
Trump said right there that day in the Oval Office is both sides are going to compromise here. He's made that clear to both Vladimir Putin and Zelensky, but it did not appear to us that Zelensky was ready to go to peace. Yeah. So when he makes that clear to us, publicly and privately, that's the president is trying to end this war. He campaigned on it. He was elected on it. And that's going to take tough diplomacy. Who would criticize us? But you have members of Democrats that are criticizing us for dealing with the Russians, the same Democrats that had no problem dealing with the murderous Iranian regime in an Iran deal that was horrific and used the Russians as...
Hey, your shit stinks worse than mine, buddy.
Intermediaries.
Can I just follow up?
I think you got one of those senators coming on your show. So it's...
I do think that a lot of that politics, it's always opportunistic, right? Every single time this shit's opportunistic.
So I'm finding the kind of hypocritical pearl clutching in Washington, D.C. to be...
to be expected. It's what it is.
Well, a bit ridiculous.
Can I just follow up on what you said about Winston Churchill? Because it is interesting. He was definitely a man for the moment during World War II. Are you suggesting that President Trump wants Zelensky to resign?
He basically said that when he's ready to talk peace or bring someone else that's ready to talk peace, someone else needs to be in charge of the country, right? So that means Zelensky is not going to be in charge of the country.
We need a leader.
I think that he's putting pressure on Zelensky and bringing up the language of Zelensky resigning in order to weaken Zelensky's position with his people, in order to make Zelensky more willing to come to the table to make...
I'm pretty sure if I was in Ukraine, if I was Ukrainian and I was fighting in the war, I would hate him for not taking the deal.
A deal? Like, if I was Trump, that's what I would do. So it's like it's a second order effect that lowers his power over his people.
Can deal with us, eventually deal with the Russians.
It's a brutal tactic. It's a rat tactic for sure. But I'm saying that's what I think he's doing. You gotta play the game.
That's the game. You gotta play the game if you want to win at the game. Those are the rules.
In this war.
Same way I call him a dictator.
If it becomes apparent that President Zelensky's either personal motivations or political motivations are divergent from ending the fighting in his country, then I think we have a real issue on our hands. But look, Donna, let's ask ourselves, what is this war going to look like a year from now? The patience of the American people to keep giving billions and billions and billions with no end in sight is not unlimited. And we also made that clear to President Zelensky at the end of that meeting.
So you're saying he might
time on his side? Is time?
I am going to remind you that Chernobyl's outer dome has been breached. Extra radiation is leaking out. A little particle is enough for you to, if you inhale it, that's a death sentence. And it's spewing out in the air.
I'm on the American people's side. What I'm saying is this war...
How many more hits does it need for the sarcophagus to get breached?
Needs to end, and that's going to take...
And I think also it takes the American people against him whenever Trump calls him a dictator and says that he has a 4% approval rating and says that he won't hold elections, etc., right? Because those are all things that make him look bad in the eyes of the American people.
They're not technically wrong, though.
That make people less supportive of Ukraine, that make Zelensky have less public pressure and public sentiment power by basically like causing people to not support him, right?
I don't necessarily think that people that don't want to support Ukraine with money or weapons or such hate the people. I mean, my heart goes out to you, but I don't have anything to help you with. Bringing back to the fact that people don't have money to get groceries, to survive, to live. I mean, I would help you, but I can't, literally. Also, I don't want to die. If you want to go and fight for no reason, that's on your back.
That's the reason why. Trump's fucking liar, fake script, not gonna lie. I listen. That's what works. And I think it did work. I think it is working. It's working as we speak. It's working.
Because
so
it's
you
not
can
wrong.
say that it's bad. You can
lies.
say it's mean. You can say he shouldn't do that. True. But that's what he's doing. That is what he's doing. I think it is working. How does it work? Because a lot of people are viewing Ukraine. So I think this is a shift of opinion versus like now versus like maybe 2 years ago. There's been a very big shift in opinion. And I see this discussed a lot, where Ukraine, like basically the idea is that Zelensky wants to keep the war up in Ukraine because he doesn't want to have to do an election. And I think also Ukraine just wants the war to go on forever. And they want us to pay for it forever. And this is a very common sentiment that that the people in the U.S. have.
Well, technically, I can't go on forever because not enough young people are getting born, or not enough babies are getting born in Europe. Technically, the whole world. The whole first world countries. Eventually, we're going to run out of soldiers. It cannot go on forever. But it could very well be the case, like I said. It could. Maybe it's a conspiracy. Maybe it's some tinfoil shit. But the fact is, if Russia keeps on keeping on in the war, they're going to keep losing money and power, and they're going to bring themselves closer to the brink of collapse, socially and economically. And I think Europe is trying to seize the opportunity to take them down. I think, maybe, could be.
You can say what the fuck all you want. I don't agree with this. I'm saying this exists. That's retarded? Well, there's a lot of retards. So what the hell do you expect? What do you expect? It's ridiculous, yeah. Imagine even thinking that. What the fuck, dude? Am I wrong? Am I wrong for accurately identifying that sentiment? Do you guys think that sentiment does not exist? No. You can say the sentiment is wrong, but me saying that it exists is not fucking wrong.
My problems are always the biggest, or are the biggest.
What an ally you are. You get invaded and we make you look bad so your enemy wins?
Sorry.
People just don't get it. 100% exists. Yeah, I'm telling you guys, like that's what's going on.
Concessions on territory. That's going to take Russian concessions on security guarantees. Yeah. That's going to take all sides coming to the table, and we are working very hard to drive those negotiations forward. We had our engagement in Riyadh with the Russians. We are working to have an engagement.
Why chat's so emotional? Chat's emotional because they think
chat's being chat. Come on. I mean, to be fair, Twitch chat, his chat is pretty smart. But chat is being chat anyway. Someone yesterday said in my chat, to be for that matter, he's ashamed of being an American. Brother, I am ashamed and afraid of being a European right now. This shit is wild and stupid as fuck. I mean,
that it's completely unfair.
You guys do not know what hard is.
Fair that Ukraine is having to give up land. They're having to give up their identity. They're having to give up their autonomy. All because Russia wants to.
Exactly. Life is unfair, like the guys in chat said, and like I said constantly yesterday. Life is not fair. It is what it is. And a lot of people in Ukraine like Russia and want to be a part of it.
Invade their country. Because like you have to look at it from the perspective, like a lot of people. Now, Russia, it is unfair. And the reality is that Ukraine doesn't have the negotiating power that Russia and the United States do. Things are not equal. Russia is more powerful than Ukraine, and the United States is more powerful than both of them. So Ukraine doesn't matter as much in the negotiations, and what they want doesn't matter as much.
To be fair, what they want is carnage. Is not necessary. So therefore, out of just that, you're left out of the consideration.
Straight up, that's how it is. And you can say that's horrible. That's the way it shouldn't be. This is the way that diplomacy has worked and wars have worked for thousands of years.
Bros, ask the people.
It doesn't work the way it should work. It works the way it does work.
We thought a deal with the Ukrainians, and then we'll bring all sides together. That only President Trump can do that. And I find it incredulous.
Somebody says what actually matters? The ability to have force and the ability to exercise that force.
The bigger stick. I have the bigger stick. You sit your ass down and be quiet. Leave me alone. That's peace.
In a precise manner. If Russia didn't have nuclear weapons and Russia didn't...
Oh, it would have been easy. The whole world would pile on them. Easy peasy.
Didn't have the military that it did, the entire conversation would be different. The only thing that matters ultimately is power, violence, and the ability to exercise that violence.
We are monkeys.
That is what really, at the end of the day, matters.
Well, now they are.
He's being criticized for that.
You just mentioned a
That's
specific concession, potentially, that you would like Vladimir Putin to make. Can you elaborate on that? Because we haven't heard any specifics before.
Well, we can't get any specifics from the Ukrainians, but this will clearly be some type of territorial concession for security guarantees going forward. I mean, that has been discussed in previous rounds of
security
negotiations,
guarantee from
and we
the
think
US.
that is a broader framework.
Who guarantees that security?
Well, right now, some first principles. This needs to be a permanent end, not a temporary end. This needs to be European-led.
Like he's gonna say, like, no, I'm gonna stop for 2 years and then I'm gonna attack.
Security guarantees going forward. Part of that is Europe's contribution to its own defense, so it has the capability to do so. We've had both the United Kingdom and France talking about their troops on the ground going forward. And then, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. What type of support we provide or not is to...
It's very interesting. I think the fact that they, in the UN, want to heavily up the investment in the armies of all the nations, that's pretty much a tell that they feel unprepared to have a war with Russia. I'm pretty sure that's the underline over here.
to be negotiated. But one thing is clear, we do not see Ukraine being a member of NATO because that would automatically drag U.S. troops in.
That's totally off the table. There's no way that happens.
Russia's not going to stop if that's
like in my opinion. I feel like every other country that they add in NATO increases the probability of this happening again. Russia would never accept it. Yeah, exactly. It's like instant World War III. Yeah,
you got to give them a little bit of what they want.
It's just not going to happen. U.S. already gave security guarantees back when Ukraine gave away its nukes. These kind of mean fuck all. In like, what was that, 1993, I think? Or 94, something like that.
But Donna, you know, look, we need to get all sides of the table, and we're very frustrated that we did not see that from the Ukrainians after we had negotiated a minerals deal that would bind us together, grow their economy, and change the nature of our aid so that the American taxpayer could recoup.
What are your conversations?
That was all done and ready to be signed on.
Basically, Zelensky is taking bread from the mouths of U.S. citizens, which they don't have enough bread as it is. And he keeps on wanting more, with no remorse.
Friday.
Why should you care about someone like that? Granted, he's not. He's technically representing Ukraine, but he's not representing the whole populace. I would hope they're not cunts.
What are your conversations like right now with the Russians in terms of reopening conversations and perhaps diplomatic normalization, embassies, and so forth?
Any avenue.
Well, Secretary Rubio's team at a working level have met with the Russians about broadening our embassy operations. They were virtually shut down on all sides. We don't, I mean, it's just a practical matter and common sense. If we're going to drive these negotiations forward, our embassies have to be operable. Those conversations are happening, and we're also having conversations about how they will end and what they need to see to end this war. There will obviously be differences on all sides, and the United States, through shuttle diplomacy and the leadership of President Trump, will drive forward to bridge those gaps. Our point is, you know, talking about the fine details of security guarantees is like talking about the details of a warranty before you know if you're going to buy the thing. We're driving both sides to the negotiating table, and yet people are trying to put the cart before the horse.
And last question, there are reports that the Trump administration...
I think he was just trying to make things difficult. He had no intention of talking about peace. Yeah, I think he only wanted to make America look like the evil doers here a little bit by not supporting the good guys, technically.
You are talking about pausing offensive cyber operations against Russia. Is that true?
That has not been part of our discussions. There will be all kinds of carrots and sticks to get this war to an end.
All right. National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, thank you so much for your time this morning. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I don't see how this ends without Ukraine giving up land and giving up a bunch of shit. To be honest, I don't see how it ends.
Hopefully it's not going to
It's not a good answer. Yeah, the interview was like not super great. There's the video right there. What's that response? Yeah, I don't know. Like a lot of non-answers, right? Very, very, very common non-answers. Yeah, it doesn't end without that. Yeah, that's how power dynamics work. Exactly. And yeah, sorry, but the USA guarantees... Yeah, that's how power dynamics work. Exactly.
Zelensky just announced he's ready to sign the mineral deal.
And yeah, sorry, but the USA guarantees
are really hauling donkeys into war right now.
Are not worth jack shit unless you put soldiers there. Yeah, but like...
Yeah, let's not even think about this. What if Russia runs out of people, soldiers? Then they're going to have to use long-range missiles and nukes and...
I don't think that Americans, like, personally, do I want to put soldiers in Ukraine?
I don't think Putin is ever, even if he's going to run out of everything to the last nuke, I think he's going to throw that nuke instead of actually saying, okay, let's just stop the war.
To defend Ukraine. No.
What?
Soldiers in Ukraine to defend Ukraine. No. No. It's too much.
Meanwhile, that's what they're doing in Europe right now.
EU's already doing it? Yeah. EU's already doing it. Now, there could...
Pre-watched. No. I wonder if more than UK are sending troops. And I wonder what the troops think about this.
Be a point if things escalate like way higher and way bigger, then maybe that would be an option. But at this current point, no. Do you think Europeans should? I don't know. It's not my problem.
No, the war should be ended.
Yeah, I have no idea. But you asked Ukraine to give up their nukes in 1993 in return for support. Here's the problem that you have, and this is something that I've been trying to explain, is that you're not going to get a 30-year-old voter to commit to giving away and signing away their future because of an original sin that was committed before they existed.
Yeah, exactly. Like, Jesus Christ. What is this?
Ultimately,
do I have to pay for the sins of my fathers?
Ultimately, if you are 27 or 30 years old, this deal happened before you existed. Or let's say you're 40 years old. This deal happened whenever you were 10 years old. You didn't sign this deal. You didn't have anything to do with this deal. And the idea that you want to sign away, you know, multiple like people to die and billions of dollars for something that you had nothing to do with, that's not going to happen.
It's just stupid.
Now, whether you think that's a good or a bad decision doesn't matter.
No, you're evil if you don't want to win. If you don't want the good guys to win, you're evil, buddy.
Trash take.
Bro, do you want to go? Fight.
I think in a lot of ways it is a trash take. You're right. I think you're right. But I still think they think that. It's just the truth.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah, Russia wouldn't care. Americans don't care. Yeah, I think that, again, Americans are very much... And I think there's also another issue where... And this goes back to, like, the military spending. I think there's a big issue that a lot of Americans have, is that they see a lot of Europeans that live... You know, they have free health care, and they have a bunch of these other things. And
most countries do not have free health care. The free health care does not pay for shit. You can't afford to have your teeth fixed in Europe. And the few countries that actually have good healthcare and you want to be on the list to do anything, you're going to wait for at least 6 months, if not more, maybe years, depending on what you need and depending on who you are. So, pluses and minuses.
One of the reasons why they have these things is because, at least this is the perception that a lot of people have, is that America gives them security guarantees and ensures that other countries won't invade them and effectively protects them. So they see these countries in Europe that are living with this higher standard of living, and they have like more like entitlement programs, etc. What? No.
Ooh. Literally, there was a study last year that the poor people in America live better than, or are the top 1% of people in the rest of the world, standard of living wise. Like, their poor people are top earners in Europe. You do not know what it means to have.
I mean, Ewan, that's 1,000% true. Okay. All right. Okay. Don't shoot the messenger. There's a lot of people that think that.
I'm sure
not 100% bad. I'm telling you,
sure
like, guys,
a lot of people are morons too.
It's not just a perception; it's the truth. It doesn't matter whether it's the truth or not. Yeah, so it's literally just factual. Like, this is it. And so a lot of people feel this way, and they think that Europe is able to enjoy a higher degree of living, and they're able to have these entitlement programs because they're not spending all of this money on the military that the U.S. is. And so I think this is a growing resentment that Americans have towards Europeans. And I think that resentment is kind of like being tested now with how many Americans.
To be fair, I think it's Europe's problem for giving this perspective to Americans, because they think about going to Europe as going to holidays, vacations, beautiful shit going on. Everything is lovely and dandy. America is better in almost every way, standard of living wise, and everything else. There are some, again, pluses and minuses, but I would rather be there in Texas specifically right now, for example, even though it's next to the border still.
Americans are okay.
Kind of a lot better than Eastern Europe.
With the Europeans taking over the responsibility for Ukraine. That's how it is. Wrong? Dumb take? Okay. That's what people think.
Yeah.
Yeah. That
also, Americans think that Europeans don't have internet and stuff like that. So
that's what people think. That's it. Yeah. Are you feeling this way, or where's the statement coming from? I think there's probably like an element of truth to it, but I don't think it's like super true. I think actually Europe just has way higher taxes, and they also have standing militaries as well. I think also the U.S. spends way too much on its military because it's been captured by the military-industrial complex.
That it is true, but I also think that it's very safe and very good to have the biggest stick around. And that's, if you're the top dog, then you can call the shots.
So I think in like a pie graph, right? Like, yeah, sure, there's like a slice, but it's not a huge slice. Like that's my opinion on it. So yeah, and there might be like a couple other.
Having a good military doesn't mean the rest of the people have to suffer. I mean,
things that I'm not thinking of. As ambassador, all the people and can speak for the average person. I'm not speaking for the average person. I'm just trying to.
He's speaking for himself.
My intention is always to understand how people think and how they feel. And in doing so, that helps me understand what's going to happen. Right? Like that's my goal. Like that's what I always like being able to do.
I wonder how the 22-year-old in Ukraine with his leg blown off by a drone feels right now. I don't think there's anything else to this.
Well, I mean, I think it's still something you should try to do, right? I feel like it should be. Yeah, that's what I would say. Chat's fucking retarded. Well, the thing is that, again, I think it's just like a really hot topic for people, right? Yeah, it's just an extremely, like...
Could be that war is a sensitive topic. Could be, maybe.
Morning, everybody. Jeremy here from The Quartering, and little Zelensky man is trotting all over Europe, basically trying to start World War III, and I'll have you know...
Basically. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's not just him. I'm pretty sure, maybe 99% sure, that it's not just him. Some powers that be, maybe China has infiltrated the Illuminati. Something's going on. This war does not need to go on. We do not need to go nuclear. If shit goes south nuclear, the whole of Europe is going to go toast. I mean, this is not a bet you should take.
But I want no part in it. And the fact that he is currently trying to grift off of NATO and other European nations who are part of NATO should tell you.
Also, it's they pretty much came up with the statement and everything about Europe backing up Zelensky right after the fiasco with him in America and Trump.
Why the aid
so fast
should immediately stop. And Trump is currently, or will later today, meet with his cabinet or his staff about immediately stopping aid to Ukraine.
I'm trying to say Europe is trying to look like the good guys here. Like, look at us, we're supporting the good.
Ukraine was offered an out. Maybe it isn't the only out, but it's the out that America was willing to provide. And he said no, he wants more war. He wants more money. And
if you ask him, he's gonna say like, I did say not such thing. I actually said thank you a lot of times. Actually, he sounds French for some reason. Technically, he didn't say that he wants to continue the war, but then again, body language, tonality, everything else said that he wants a W. He didn't use the words, but he wants a W. He wants Putin to be in jail. He wants Putin to suffer. He wants probably the whole of Russia, because he was talking about them like they're literally devils. There are also kids that fight other kids, 20-year-olds that do not want to have any part of this. Maybe there are some retards that have nothing to do with their lives that want to kill each other. Sure. But most of them, again, I'm pretty sure do not want to die for no reason. I'm pretty sure they would rather be home fucking their wives. Girlfriends.
And he immediately flew to
off.
Europe and went on a PR tour there where a bunch of leaders with no troops at all and random islands, nations, government officials said thoughts and prayers to Ukraine, all because they don't like Trump. Well, that's fine by me. You can take over funding this war. Now, it must feel pretty spooky to be somebody in the UK right now, if you're a UK viewer, and hear Starmer and other people talking about, you know, essentially putting boots on the ground, which would open us up to a literal World War III scenario. And that's why Trump should immediately leave NATO. Or
I wonder what Russia thinks about this now that the UK literally said that they're going to put boots on the ground. And I'm also, like I said earlier, very curious which other countries are supporting this. I would presume Germany is going to follow suit immediately. Maybe France afterwards.
Well, at least be...
Or they're going to force the poor Eastern Europeans to go on the front lines. I do not want to do that.
Considering leaving NATO, just because...
I'm going to ninjutsu my way out of here immediately.
I don't want to be tied to what, you know, random politicians in Europe want to do. If they want to start World War III, I just don't think there's any value in the United States.
Technically, if America doesn't get involved, it's not a world war. It's a European war.
Losing our...
Half a world war.
Sons and daughters for that. Here you see Ukrainian President...
Maybe a third.
Volodymyr Zelensky, of course... now says peace with Russia is, quote, very, very far away.
Far away.
Very, very, very far away. And that is, you know, part of his own choice. Now, there are a lot of people who are saying, well, Jeremy, isn't this really a Putin issue? Isn't Putin the guy that's, you know, making this an issue? Sure. We aren't negotiating with Putin right now. We're trying to negotiate with little Zelensky. He says more money, even though he's out of troops. His own soldiers don't want to fight this war. Russian soldiers don't want to fight.
I would assume he knows what he's talking about because he's literally a reporter. This is his job. He's supposed to know everything. And usually he's pretty truthful and he's pretty trustworthy. Also, it makes sense. I think it's the 4th or 5th time I've said it in 1 hour. I am 100% sure none of the youngsters want to die.
This war, and everyone's just keeping it going while more innocent people are losing their lives.
And the youngsters in Europe, technically, I want the UK guys to say this also. I would want all the youngsters in Europe that are supposed to fight in this war to rise up and say, fuck you guys, no, we're not going to do this. We're not going to die. We're not going to be meat shields, body bags for you motherfuckers.
Trump is meeting with aides today to discuss canceling U.S. military to Ukraine. This according to the New York Times. Something that I support. I also support canceling UK military aid to Israel. We just sent them another $3 billion or something like that. I don't want
for some transgender shit, probably.
Want to be doing any military aid. Here you have Zelensky essentially threatening Lindsey Graham, saying he can move to Ukraine and gain citizenship if he wants his resignation call to carry any weight. Reporter Senator Lindsey Graham said perhaps you should consider resigning. Zelensky said, I can give him citizenship of Ukraine. He will become a citizen of our country, and then his voice will gain weight. Essentially saying,
if I am literally super curious right now, if how much actually of Ukraine thinks like he thinks, because if most of most of them, if this is how they feel, they do not deserve any help. If you are not grateful for the help that you already got and you do not think rationally, Bro, again, you are taking bread from the mouths of people, of families that do not have much to give, to spare. I get it that you want the good side to win. I get it that you want the happy ending. A lot of the times in life, happy endings are just fairy tales. It is what it is. The best outcome right now would be to just stop. And that's not even a guarantee. Putin needs to answer the call too. He needs to agree. Right now, we don't even have half of the agreement, or they're technically thirds, right? America, Ukraine, and...
Hey, now I don't know who this is. Chris Jackson seems to be a big fan of war. Saying, I will hear him out as a citizen of Ukraine on the topic who must be the president. Now, that is actually a fair response if somebody in Ukraine or Europe or whatever was saying, hey, Trump needs to resign. He's not even a citizen. Nobody really cares.
Why do you need to be a citizen to have a logical answer? It's so
not
moronic.
going well. Trump, by the way, says big announcement, which is going to be tomorrow.
Is he corrupt or is he just retarded?
Tomorrow night, he's going to be meeting. I suspect he's going to be talking about potentially...
He's an actor, so he's a narcissist.
Leaving NATO, which you couldn't do immediately. There are obligations. There are things going on. You see announced U.S. withdrawal from NATO. It would be... There's some conversations to be had that are above my pay grade.
Yeah, exactly. You should spend time worrying about Putin, more time about worrying the migrants, rape gangs, drug lords, murderers, and people in mental institutes entering your country. Brothers, they're not entering their country. They're invited with open arms. Come here. We're going to take care of you.
About leaving NATO, but if NATO is going to show themselves to be, willing to get sucked into this war with Ukraine, then the United States must leave NATO to protect itself. You see here Anna Paulina saying we must leave NATO. You have a lot of people talking about leaving NATO. Here,
also, a lot of people have been talking about them being very corrupt and very useless the past couple of years.
Starmer says the UK is prepared to defend Ukraine with boots on the ground. Here's a picture of the UK right now.
And some boots.
They've been invaded by, foreigners already. Keir Starmer, when nobody's filling those boots, I will defend Ukraine.
Yeah, they're not their boots to be filled. Like
Ukraine's borders, but not Britain's borders. Could you imagine living in the UK, as I know some of my viewers do? This would be so infuriating.
It is.
Hopefully it wakes them up in the next election. More people.
You don't have anyone to elect. It doesn't matter. They're just puppets. They're just faces. That's the issue. It doesn't matter which one is going to be the face that's going to lie to you. They're all going to be manipulated from the shadows.
I assume my viewers are probably on the same page.
It is fucking Game of Thrones.
But this is so bonkers. By the way, there's nothing stopping, anybody to sign up to be in the Ukrainian National Guard. Foreigners can do that. So go ahead and do that. Anybody who's tweeting, I stand with you.
It's kind of funny that Europe is shitting on Trump for doing what he's doing, basically cleaning up America. Because I guess they don't want the European populace to think that, hey, they can clean up the shit. We can have safe cities, good life again. It's possible in these days. Oh, shit. I want some of that. I'm pretty sure that's why Trump is not playing ball. They're supposed to kill the population of the earth, right? They're supposed to have it or whatever the fuck. There's too many of us. Wars are good for that.
Ukraine, you should sign up. Zelensky rejects calls for immediate Ukraine-Russia ceasefire. Why? Because
imagine that, trying to help someone and he blocks you or just hangs up. What's the reject call?
Money. And here you say, Ukraine's Elon Musk strikes fear into Europe after agreeing the U.S. should leave both NATO and the UN.
Because
when you're paying for 90% of stuff, and you're providing 90% of the services and protections that these nations are offering,
these nations demand,
or that these groups are offering, and they become of danger to you, I think you should leave. You know, Elon Musk retweeting Gunther Eagleman, famed
Western Europe has been profiteering and taking advantage of Eastern Europe since forever. They just recently got the whole of America, and they were profiteering heavily off of them. And now they're crying about taking away their toys and shit. There's nothing new. It is what it is. Not Eastern. Western Europe is just Western Europe. Has been, always will be, probably.
Isle binder photo op guy. It's time to leave NATO and the UN. Elon.
Super annoying that you would think with younger politicians, a new age of thinking, with more compassion and more for the people, energy would come on. I mean, it's still the same shit since the 90s.
Musk says, I agree. I mean, this is something that Trump has talked about before. Donald Trump has so far avoided actively calling for the U.S. to exit from NATO, but in the aftermath of his second election victory, he has consistently painted it as a one-sided relationship, which it is. He told reporters that he doubted the value of spending money on NATO since the U.S. was protecting NATO members, but they were not protecting us. Instead, there is clear momentum in the White House against an isolationist America First position, and the president has repeatedly berated his fellow NATO allies for not increasing their defense spending quickly enough. The U.S. president's team told European officials back in December that the bloc would have to more than double its spending target of 2%, a target which over a quarter of its members were well on course to fail to meet. Trump called for European nations to up their military budgets to 5% of GDP, far higher than the U.S.'s own defense spending. Well, that's because they owe money, and they need to play catch up.
Yeah.
When they get caught up, maybe they can reduce it. Here you see, get America out of NATO now. Do they realize that bringing Ukraine to NATO would start World War III? Yeah. This is Zelensky posing with a bunch of NATO nations.
Wait a minute. I didn't think they were meeting up to bring Ukraine into NATO. I thought they were just meeting to get funding. What? That would be devastating.
Here's True Douche. They had
how much
an emergency NATO meeting that the United States wasn't a part of to do this crap. And, very few of those people are committing none of those people are committing the level of money and weapons that the United States are. Senator Mike Lee calling for the United States to leave NATO, saying, how many other rational Americans are in Congress? Every single one should be calling for us to get out of NATO before it's too late. We've been footing the cash bill. We must stop before it turns into bodies. I agree. Anna Polina, Tulsi Gabbard, Europe is abandoning freedom. Ukraine.
We have never had freedom.
Ukraine cancels elections. Opposition silenced and jailed. Churches shut down. Government controls media. They stand against Putin, but what are they actually fighting for?
Well, and they also, though, think that they're in more alignment, and they should be, with the U.S. when it comes to those freedoms and things you talk about.
It's a very common misconception to think that the whole world has the level of freedom and the level of weight that your word would carry, like in America. In most of places on earth, it's not like that. If you complain to the manager, you're not going to get your way in most places in Europe. Nobody gives a fuck about you unless you're American. For some reason, then it matters.
Certainly, those are not things that you would say that Russia or Putin celebrates or bestows on his own people.
That's correct. I would not make that claim, and it's clear that that's not the case, nor does President Trump. But that's not really what we're talking about here. We're talking about many of these European countries and Zelensky himself, who claim to be standing and fighting for the cause of freedom and democracy, when we actually look at what's happening
conscripting his own people against their will.
As well as with
That's democratic. Democracy, baby. For the win.
Zelensky's government in Ukraine is the exact opposite.
What are you, a pussy? You don't want to fight for your country? You loser? What's wrong with dying for no reason? While I sit my ass in a mansion and an S-Class and yacht and whatever the fuck I want.
The canceling of elections.
Go back home to my wife at night and kiss her goodnight while you sit in the rain. Food, no wife, no nothing.
In Ukraine, you have political parties being silenced or even criminalized or thrown in prison. You have the freedom of religion, churches being shut down. You have political opposition being silenced. You have total government control.
In the Lex Friedman podcast, Zelensky refused to talk Russian, and Lex even said this. A lot of Ukrainians also talk Russian in their daily lives. They just right now, or he just refused to talk Russian only on because he wanted to spite Putin and not speak his language. He literally made himself harder to understand just because he wanted to be a hardhead. This man is not rational in any way. He's a little kid that didn't ever have the right to be in power.
Does that sound like freedom to you? Does that sound like, you know, a free nation?
Control of the media. We could go down a whole lot.
It sounds like Europe. The freedom that Europe had. It had.
Laundry list of issues that are against the values of democracy and freedom.
Technically, if you go back enough, like these days, it's pretty good. Like in the 80s, a lot of the countries were communistic dictatorships.
So it really begs the question, as Vice President Vance said again in Munich.
So it's not that bad now.
It's clear that they're standing against Putin. Obviously, that's clear.
Sure.
But what are they actually really fighting for? And are they aligned with the values that they claim to hold in agreement with us? The values that President Trump and Vice President Vance are standing for, and those are the values of freedom, of peace.
Look,
they scoffed when the JD gave that speech, and they were very outraged about it. That's their stance.
Again, my beef is not with the Ukrainian people, but you have Zelensky and Graham exchange jabs over leadership and support. You know, it's the number one trending thing in America right now. And number 3 is Russia. Number 4 is Europe. Are any of those America? Number 6 is Putin, right? People are genuinely worried. There's infinitely more outrage from the media about Ukraine than there ever was about my neighbors in Western North Carolina living in tents in the cold after Hurricane Helene. You know, I mean,
also that would
UK actually sending troops is bonkers. Here you see Zelensky admits that if Ukraine gets NATO membership.
Also, it's classic politics. The people in charge of your country are not going to give a fuck about you. They're going to give a fuck about other people in other countries, just so they can siphon money and wash it and pickpocket it. And, you know,
then he has fulfilled his mission. His mission is not to govern it. His mission is NATO membership for Ukraine, which would nearly immediately trigger World War III.
If I am to be changed,
he did say that multiple times in the beginning before they actually shut him up.
And I'll hear, how can I put it? With what's happening with the support to change me, it will not be easy because it is not enough to simply hold elections.
Okay, I think he misspoke. Like he has fulfilled his mission. I don't think he hoped for that, but I don't think he rationally or by any means thought that it could be achieved. Unless he's retarded, which we have our doubts now.
And it will be a bit more difficult, so they'll have to negotiate with me. And I said that I'm exchanging it for NATO membership.
I'm exchanging it for NATO membership.
That means that I fulfilled my mission.
What does Ukraine bring to NATO? I'm
minerals.
Legitimately asking.
They could.
They don't have any money.
Imagine if that was the case. If they said, like, bro, what's this mineral shit that you want to go to? You want to give some shit to America? Brother, come over here. I got some. Let's talk a bit. I got some. You want rockets? I got some rockets. What rocks do you have?
They're billions in debt to America. Their military is depleted. Their populace is spread across the...
They do not want to fight. Again, I'm bringing back to the story of not a friend, acquaintance of mine that's a bouncer. Ukrainian refugees went into the club, made a ruckus. They were escorted out, and they started a fight and wounded up, cutting his forearm the long way with a machete. Not all Ukrainians are good people, of course, but hopefully not all of them are retarded, because what I've seen of them, they're not painted in a very good light.
The world. I don't know if they would return home after war or not. I suspect many would.
You're stupid if you go back to Ukraine. If the war stops by any means, get the fuck out of there. Take your family. If you can, just leave your citizenship away. Go to the Congo or something.
Why would we be adding them to NATO?
Disappear.
You see, Clinton Russell, neither I nor my sons nor my daughters will ever fight to defend Ukraine or Europe for that matter. Never. Exit NATO immediately. He's clearly trying to start a world war.
The U.S. will have to send...
It's borderline evil. If he's not retarded, he's evil as fuck.
Their sons and daughters exactly the same way as we are sending their sons and daughters to war, and they will have to fight because
what?
Daughters will ever fight to defend Ukraine or Europe for that matter. Never. Exit NATO immediately. He's clearly trying to start a world war.
The U.S. will have to send their sons and daughters exactly the same way as we are sending their sons and daughters to war, and they will have to fight because it's NATO that we're talking about, and they will be dying.
I hope that's taken out of context. That sounds nothing like someone that loves life and the populace of the country he has the opportunity to serve, technically. How are you demanding other people to die on your behalf when you're just a politician, bro? You're literally at home jacking off while others die.
Now, this is a very small snippet.
It's disgusting.
From a live stream, and he's talking about, NATO membership. And he's saying if something happens to a NATO country, then the United States will have to send its military, which is exactly why.
And that's why Trump said, you know what, good point. Let's get the fuck out of here.
I'm fine with Ukraine not being a member of NATO. If you're in the UK, by the way, again, I stand with Ukraine. Good news. Foreigners are allowed to serve in Ukraine's National Guard.
By foreigners, I presume they mean illegal immigrants.
I've been watching this very closely. Things are developing very rapidly, so make sure you leave a like on this video and you subscribe to the channel. And if any more updates come out today, which I'm sure they will, I will upload a new video to keep you up to date. I hope you enjoyed, and we'll talk to you again real soon.
Brother, this is disgusting. There is no fucking way. There are... Bro. World War III is literally about to start. Jesus fuck, I was literally hopeful about this. Yesterday I thought the war was gonna end. We're gonna have a little signing, a little smiles, some hands getting shaken, a little Trump jokes, and that would have been it. But apparently he wants war. He wants more people to die for no reason. Bro.
Even now, I have to be...
I am not even considering for 1 second. Not for 1 second am I considering to fight in the war. Even if my country demands me, I'm gonna ninja my way out of here.
Watching my words very carefully and select my words just enough to damage the country.
This is a very important question for you to answer. do you directly or indirectly know that he's gotten paid from all the money that other countries are giving to him?
The level of corruption is off the charts, catastrophical. Zelensky is an extreme.
Yesterday I told you guys there's a story around that I don't know what general of the Ukraine during wartime last year, I think it was last year, but during the war, he gave his daughter a wedding gift, a patch of land worth 7 million euros. Where the fuck did the general have the money? Oh, how convenient that during wartime you just happen to find some money. Oh, would you look at that? There's a bunch of money lying around.
Extremely authoritarian and strict person. Everybody played him like the owner of this puppet, but it's all the opposite.
You know what they're going to do in your country if you go out there and you talk like this? You think they're going to let somebody like you win?
I think I will win.
Really?
Yes.
Really? Who do you trust more, Zelensky or Putin? Which one? You trust Putin more?
You know what to expect of him. He's a maniac. Truth be told, Zelensky's a maniac too.
Why is that?
Because the enemy is a better teacher.
So imagine all the conflicts going on right now between Ukraine and Russia. And you, let's just say your name is Alexei Arestovich, and you are Zelensky's top advisor. You're back.
Pretty good pronunciation.
Background is military intelligence, right?
I wouldn't know. I'm not Ukrainian, but it sounds like a good Eastern European name.
And you're in there and you're making all of these predictions and you keep getting right on when Putin's going to invade Ukraine over and over. Everybody's like, why does this guy get these things right? You're on the inside.
You need to have half a brain and you can easily predict this shit. I mean, I'm pretty much Nostradamus when it comes to predicting shit.
And all of a sudden, there's a big...
You're adopted.
Falling out between the two of you, Zelensky and Arestovich. And then suddenly, you are in exile because you have 3 criminal prosecutions that's going on with you, investigations that's going on with you. You leave Ukraine, September of 2023. Now, this is somebody that you are considered as a number 2 candidate for being a president that you can potentially take over Zelensky's job. While that's going on, he came in here. We did a 2-hour podcast together. The things we discussed was mind-boggling. And I asked him a question. I said, so how much time have you spent with Zelensky? He says, weeks, hundreds of hours. I said, great. How different is he from the one we see on stage versus the one he is behind closed doors? His answer will shock you. I asked him.
I don't think Zelensky is, he is a retard, but I don't think he's stupid. I would expect him to be very careful. He is an actor. He should be able to act very good. And I would expect him to only drop his guard in the bedroom. Maybe after a little sexy time.
About the visit that Boris Johnson had. 3 visits Boris Johnson from UK comes to Kiev. And they're talking about, hey, we'd like to prevent the war and stop the war. And Boris is saying no. And then we went through the sequencing of Boris Johnson coming here. He's in the meetings while these negotiations are taking place. And Boris is making that recommendation. And then he leaves his timeline of stepping out in September. Then Liz Truss coming in as a prime minister for 1 month, September, October. Nord Stream pipeline happens. Then I asked him the question of who he thought it was behind it. You have to hear the answer here. His breakdown and analysis on Putin was very unique.
What do you mean who?
You're going to be enamored by the way he broke down Putin's strategies and what Putin is doing. But all in all, this is not somebody that Zelensky likes. This is not somebody that Zelensky trusts. I even asked the question of how many people that are in Zelensky's camp right now that trust him, that are in communication with him. Specifically, when I asked the question about corruption and the amount of money, how much of that money flowed to Zelensky, this is a tell-all conversation.
Most politicians are smart about this. They don't directly send money to themselves. They maybe have a spouse, they maybe have a little businesses, they maybe have their children set them up with some businesses, or they got ways. I mean, the only the stupid guys pocket money straight up.
Conversation here with probably the most qualified person to speak on the topic of Zelensky. With that being said,
And Ukraine is one of the most corrupt countries in Europe.
Enjoy this 2-hour sit-down with Alexei Arestovich.
30 seconds. Did you ever think you would make it? I feel I'm so close I could take sweet victory. I know this life meant for me. Yeah, why would you bet on Goliath when we got Bet David? Valuetainment, giving values contagious. This world.
This interview together here. As we're doing this, the audience that's watching this, he will be speaking in Russian. There will be a translator. You will hear the...
Would you look at that? The Ukrainian is speaking Russian. And with no remorse, he doesn't feel bad for it. He must be evil. He must be in cahoots with Putin.
Translator in English. I will be going back and forth with the question. The interview is also being uploaded in Russian on our Valuetainment Russian channel. So if somebody wants to watch this right now and they just want to watch it in Russian, I'm going to put the link below.
To have different language channels.
Below on the YouTube channel that will take us to our Valuetainment Russian channel if you just want to listen to this whole thing in Russian. Having said that, Olex, it's great to have you here on the podcast.
Nice to meet you.
Likewise. So a few things when we're talking about this. One, your background for the audience doesn't know, specific to Ukraine, Zelensky, and Russia, if you don't mind sharing that with the audience.
In 1998, I finished the same military school as General Zaluzhny. We know each other since that time. We're friends since the military school. Then I was serving in the Ukrainian military intelligence, specializing on the military and political analysis. Within that framework, when I retired in 2005, I predicted, while analyzing the situation, and predicted that Russia will invade Crimea. I described it, and there's a video of that in the internet from 2008 where I described how they will invade Crimea. And that's actually how they did it, the literally same stages and same...
And Putin was like, what? No. What? No. What gave you that idea? No, I'm not going to... No. Invade?
Steps as I had described then. There was a video.
What are you doing with those troops over there? Military exercise. Don't worry about it. Hey, don't worry about it. Yeah.
2015, 18, 19, where I was predicted the war will break out. Since 2014, I was participating in the second Maidan and military operations in the East, and I became famous as a military commentator, military reviewer. When Zelensky came to power, I criticized...
That sounds interesting, military commentator. Would you like to... I'm pretty sure that would be a banger stream or something. Probably it's going to be on Twitch at some point. Literally military commentary like at the UFC. Full-on live fights in the military, commentating over.
Him very sharply because of his approach towards war and towards stopping the war and so forth. So harsh that one time they invited me over to talk. I was especially critical of the informational coverage of the Minsk process. And I received the call from their office and they invited me to a meeting in the Minsk process. And when it finished, they said, what's your opinion? What do you think that the informational policy should be? I described it, what I would do, and they offered me to become an advisor and speaker of the Ukrainian group in the Minsk process. Parallel, there was the Normand process happening. And about 3 weeks after that, I met with Yermak, and he offered for me to become the advisor to the office. And I was an advisor on strategical communication in the area of national defense. In that capacity, I went through the Minsk process, the Normand process.
To Zelensky.
Yes, to Zelensky's office. When the war began, I became the main speaker, one of the three main speakers. The first was Zelensky, and Podolyak was second, and I was the speaker on the military issues. Then it happened that there was an explosive growth and popular and influence. I became the second most popular person in Ukraine, and I took part in the Istanbul process, where I was also the head of the military subgroup. In the talks with Russia, there were 4 subgroups: the economic, political, cultural, and I was the head of the military subgroup.
At this time when this is happening, is your relationship with Zelensky good? Are you guys spending time together? There's a good relationship. He trusts you, you trust him, or is there instability? Is there friction?
As much as a politician can trust another.
Between you, the two of you guys?
I never really was. I was always a black sheep. I've never was a member of his team. More likely it was just their method to draw near the people who are criticizing them in order to disarm them. Then in the middle of March 2022, half a month after the beginning of the war, it became evident that I was ranking second most popular person in the country. Him or his people around him began undertaking systematic action against my popularity.
Bro, it's disgusting. If Zelensky was corrupt from the beginning and he started the war, if they had an out without going to war and he chose not to, bro, he's the devil.
They started a campaign that continues until today to portray that Arestovich is the concentration of all things evil in Ukraine. Moreover, considering that I'm expressing direct political ambitions, this campaign is growing more fierce every day.
So could that be that you were a threat because the fear was your ambitions were you were building your own identity because you eventually wanted to be the president? And that could be threatening to a guy like Zelensky where they want to get rid of you. Is that a fair assessment or no?
Yes. It's like when two narcissists found themselves in the same den and it has become too tight for both of them.
And I told you, I guarantee he's a narcissist because he's an actor. An actor that became president at that. Telltale signs that he likes power. He likes attention.
You would say you're one of the narcissists. You're comfortable saying that.
They call me that way. I don't consider myself to be one. I've been studying psychology for many years as an amateur.
Yeah, it takes one to know one.
Not sure, but nonetheless. And so I know what a narcissist is, the definition, and it was just sort of a joke.
And I appreciate that, what you're saying. But for me, I think that you need a little bit of it to be a president, because to think you can lead a country, you have to think very highly of yourself. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But going back to...
There are good parts and bad parts to every personality archetype. Nobody's saying something's negatively fully.
So
like I said yesterday, very rarely in life does everything, or very rarely is everything or something categorically yes or no.
Caused the relationship to get to a point that you had to leave the country and be in exile. What led to that event?
Look, in 2000, the steps were as follows. It began in March 2022. Then later in July of 2022, I was given an interview to a very famous Ukrainian journalist, Dmitry Gordon. I openly stated there, he asked me if I was going to run for president, and I said yes. And since then, it was clear that the set of problems standing before Ukraine resonates with me, and I understood that this is my life goal to help Ukraine to resolve these issues. I have my own views on those things, and after that, there was a totally crazy campaign that was set in motion against me, inspired particularly by people surrounding Zelensky, and not only by them, but also other political opponents. The systems began working against me. Then a Russian missile hits a residential building in Dnipro, which is the second city in Ukraine by size, actually third after Kharkiv. This happened in January 2023. And in an interview, I had a daily show with the Russian oppositioner Mark Vigin. 500,000 people would watch it every time, every day. 500,000 people. It was very popular. And on that show live, I was very tired and I misspoke when they asked me about whether it was possible to intercept the missile. And I said that in my opinion, I think it was a Russian missile, but only after it was intercepted by our defense system, only after that it in turn hit the residential building. So when I misspoke, it was used in a huge campaign against me. And they actually suggested that I...
What year is this? What year?
This was January 14, 2023.
He's wrong about that?
Oh, so this is, you're in war, January
1 year
1st,
after the beginning of the war. They used this against me, and Yermak and Zelensky...
Bro, isn't it so fucked up that you literally can't trust anyone these days? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they intentionally shot that rocket down in such a way that it would hit a residential building. I would not be surprised. Also, I'm not amazed that this guy has a fancy chair like that.
Suggested to resign, leave the office. At that point,
fancy looking,
it was already clear that we differ on a whole range of issues. In particular, one of them is the fate of the Russian church in Ukraine, or the Ukrainian Church of the Russian Patriarchy. While being an advisor, I publicly spoke out in his defense, also on some other issues. And so, to be honest, I was happy to leave because the totality of contradictions between me and their position was critical in size by then. But since I was phenomenally popular in Ukraine and beyond its borders, I had a lot of invitations to all kinds of international conferences on security. And they were not able not to send me there. I would regularly travel, go there, represent Ukraine in my particular opinion. And then in September 2023, while I was in the U.S., our visits coincided, my visit and President Zelensky's. And in one of the programs, I was asked to comment on his visit, and I assessed it as extremely unsuccessful. I changed my rhetoric and predicted all of the troubles that we now have, because during NATO summit in Vilnius in June 2023, and during that visit, in those statements, I saw all the problems that we have now. And I was warned. And American professional will not name the person, not to return to Ukraine. I laughed. I already had my return ticket to Ukraine, so I laughed. I said, this cannot be how I'm the second most popular person in the country. Who and how would do that, and so forth. Moreover, I myself come from intelligence services background, and I know when it's a real threat and when it's not. I did not take it seriously at all. He repeated, I'm just trying to be precise. I was in the immediate...
Classic shenanigans between opposite parties of politicians. Classic.
Proximity with Zelensky.
How many hours would you say? Like
it would be weeks. Yes, hundreds of hours.
Okay, got it. So you've spent enough time around him to see how he is. How different is he behind closed doors as a leader than he is the way we see him on stage when he's begging for money or raising for money or, pleading for everybody around the world?
He would be very offended of you using that word, begging.
To want to support him. Is he the same person behind closed doors as he is on the big screen?
It's two different people.
Really?
Yes, of course. On the screen, he plays the role of this unbreakable leader, like made of iron. In life, he carries himself in a much softer way in personal conversations. He attentively listens to everyone's opinion, but nonetheless, he takes decisions himself later on behind closed doors when everyone leaves.
So, for us, Americans or people around the world who are not directly in there, who don't know his story, we see the videos of him dancing. We see the videos of him being an actor. We see the videos of him going from being a teacher in a show to...
There's nothing wrong with the guy being an actor, but he doesn't act like someone that should be a president.
Accidentally becomes a president, right? For you, being from there, that's lived there, to the average person, how did Zelensky get his popularity, and how did he eventually get to a point of becoming a president in Ukraine?
It was a huge protest against the old political system that was in action since 1991 through 2012, and during the time he was elected. It was the third Maidan, but it was an electoral Maidan, voters Maidan. People were not so much voting for him, even though a good amount of people voted for him, as much as...
Is it weird that I'm getting a boner?
They were voting against Poroshenko and the old system. They wanted to elect a wild card joker person who is not from the system, and they got one.
1991, he's 13 years old, right? This is when the negotiations taking place. I'm thinking you're talking about the Budapest memorandum, the whole conversation that's happening. Hey, if you give us the 1,700 nuclear warheads, we will give you protection. That's what we'll do. And then from that moment on, I'm more interested in Zelensky. So were the puppet masters looking to see somebody that they can use, and Zelensky was perfect for the puppet masters? Is that who he was perfect for, because he was an image, he was famous?
No. There are two main legends around Zelensky's name. The first is that he's someone's puppet, that Kolomoisky, for example, one of Ukrainian oligarchs. And the second one is that really Yermak runs everything and Zelensky is his puppet. But it's not so. Zelensky is an extraordinarily harsh and authoritarian person. He controls everything. And Yermak, when he says that he's just Zelensky's manager, it's true. He's not exaggerating. There are places and issues where they do not let Yermak in, where he decides single-handedly, and the list of all those topics is not so short. And Kolomoisky is currently in jail. Everybody was portraying him as the owner of the puppet, but you see, they were pushing this legend, but you see how it all turned out to be.
Or it could just be that Zelensky's a backstabbing bitch.
Well, that's complimentary for you to say that, because, if one would think, you would say, no, he doesn't know what he's doing. He got lucky. He's done the job because other people are using him and all this other stuff. You're saying no. He actually knows exactly what he's doing and how he got to that position.
Absolutely.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay. So who is Zelensky to you? You know, when seeing, raising capital, raising money, hey, give me more money here and all this other stuff. Is Zelensky, in America, we were divided. A lot of people were all about, hey, Putin's a bad guy, Russia's horrible, he's an evil empire, he's a modern day Hitler,
nobody's saying
whatever,
he's not.
we just got to make sure this guy, we got to take him down and we got to protect Ukraine. And everybody was wearing the Ukraine flag, pin here. Everybody on their Twitter profile, their pictures, Instagram, shirts, jackets, it doesn't matter who you were, everybody.
Yeah, because America loves a good cause.
Had the Ukraine pin, a lot of people. And a lot of people fell for it, right? And what a noble man Zelensky is, person of the year. He's amazing. He's doing all these great things.
From the start, I smelled the bullshit on the motherfucker's breath. He stinks of dick. This man is literally bathing in shit. That's how many lies he's spewing. From the start, it smelled like propaganda to me.
But that's the image a lot of people had, and gradually his popularity around the world has declined. It's not what it was a year and a half ago. It's not what it was 2 years ago. But from your perspective, who's Zelensky to you?
For me, Zelensky is a person that when life threw challenges at him, they were beyond his competency. Meaning, if perhaps he was a president during peaceful time, perhaps he could manage. But when his life confronted him with war, huge challenges, first COVID.
To be fair, it is hard. But if he's just incompetent, it would make him less... he wouldn't be evil if he's just incompetent. But I think he's corrupt, and that would make him at least partly evil.
Then the war, he could not handle it. He simply was not able to understand and resolve the problems posed before him. Moreover, from my point of view, this is a person who de facto deceived his voters. He promised them one thing and practically did not fulfill not a single election promise. Especially those key issues. Ukraine has about 25% of desperate nationalists who in their extreme nationalism rolled down to chauvinism, especially with the war trauma.
I presume those are the guys that want to fight. Go on and fight, my guys.
73% of voters voted for Zelensky, practically the entire remainder. We're talking 25 and 73. And to them, he promised a wider multicultural project where people who speak in Russian, for example, and Russian...
Wait a minute, the nationalists didn't vote for Zelensky? What?
Culture is an organic part of Ukrainian culture. And so this is why they voted for him, because he said that he will not allow to split Ukrainians based on the language they speak and what church they go to. But he did not do any of that. He did everything to the opposite. Poroshenko, at his time, announced his famous concept stating army, language, Ukrainian language, and faith. And he consolidated around 25% of voters around himself, and the rest voted against that. In the result, Zelensky's administration, it turned up that he supported that very same project. And today, Ukraine is facing a serious violation of Constitution, and he himself is supposed to be the guarantor of Constitution. Human rights violations, brutal violations, persecution of the church, etc. And I began criticizing that when I was still his advisor to his office. Because for me, my personal motivation is very close toward a religious one. For me, the issue of conscience, honor, precision are key issues, the issue of truth. And I'm not able to stay silent, and even now I'm not silent because he, with all of this negative attitudes toward what he does, he's the head.
I want to believe him, but he's also a politician, so show me some action.
The president and the head of our country that's at war with a superior opponent. So in my rhetoric and my critic, and I'm being officially in political opposition to him, I must at all time carefully choose my words to make a distinction between the office of the president of Ukraine and Volodymyr Zelensky as a person. I'm trying not to damage the president of Ukraine, rather to hit particularly Zelensky himself. And this may have a negative appearance as if I'm waging a personal war within him. That's not true. It's not the case. I'm criticizing him as a political leader that is making mistakes, in my opinion, including strategical mistakes on the inside and the outside, refraining from waging war as a matter of principle. But oftentimes, such reputation may get created. And at all times, even now, I have to carefully select my words as a matter of principle so as not to damage the country.
like I said earlier, he's not doing the Ukrainians any favors by acting like a dumbass. I mean, he's literally making people hate Ukrainians.
And it's not easy.
I can only imagine. And I'm assuming that's why you chose to speak in your native language, because you do speak English.
I speak English, and I could provide this interview on the English.
You know the technicalities of words.
But I have to be specified, very specified.
I totally respect it.
Accuracy,
I get it,
yes.
specifically in this position that you're in. Yeah, I mean, when you think about, when I look at the numbers, when he won in 2019, 73.22%. And he said, I promise I will never let you down, right? His words that he talked about. Now, transitioning into where we are today, okay? So let's go to Putin, in your eyes. When you break down the history of what's happened between...
If there was ever a character in a show, TV show, that's a backstabbing bitch, a little rat bastard, that would be his face. To be fair. This would also be his face.
When you break down the history of what's happened between Putin and Ukraine and Russia and the history of it, I'll even give you a timeline here in a minute, and when you see it, I'm sure you recognize the timeline. You're very critical of Zelensky, very, based on what you're saying. What is your impression of Putin, when you think about what he's doing?
Maniac.
With the war, with the way he's handling it, with the fact that, U.S. put sanctions on him 2 years ago. I think it's been a little bit over 2 years that he's had the sanctions. It's affected the economy, the inflation, what they're going through. But what do you think about what Putin did with the first actions? Your impression of him?
Putin, he single-handedly took several decisions, single-handed decisions that are directed against my country. And not only, the first is that when he took away Crimea in 2014, then the whole activity in Donbass and full-scale war that began in 2022. He is the leader of a country who single-handedly took a decision to go with military aggression against Ukraine, and I qualify him as such, no less, no more. That's officially. Unofficially, I have my particular opinion about him as a person and political leader and how he came to that life. Better said, to those decisions. I openly state that, which does not add to my popularity among many Ukrainians, because I have my own view of things, and if you wish, I can share this with you, but it will take 3 to 5 minutes. It's a long text.
I would love to hear it. I want to hear it.
From my point of view, Putin, upon completing the Leningrad University and working in the West, and he comes from political intelligence background.
Oh, this guy did his homework.
Is the most pro-Western Russian politician until now. His mindset. In his mindset, he is the most pro-Western politician. Let's recall his coming to power. His first proposition to the West was to accept Russia into NATO. Then he offered to make Russian missile defense system as part of the Western American missile defense system.
That wasn't into politics back then.
He's the first leader who called George Bush after 9/11 and offered his help. He organized a stopover base for the U.S. and NATO in Volga. It is the same person who today is saying no to NATO bases in Ukraine. And Americans, during their campaign in Afghanistan, were using Russian territory in their stopover bases in Russia. It took a long time before he switched to anti-Western courts. I can even name you the stages of that process. In the beginning, he started fighting with those whom he considered Russia's internal enemies. Those are the oligarchs like Berezovsky, Kosinski, TV channels, etc. So he began taking action as a KGB officer who's used to oppress internal opposition. He got in trouble with the West, particularly with the soft power side NGO structures that were bringing Western influence, especially the influence that Democrat globalists were introducing through the means like USAID and Soros Fund, etc. He understood that this is the soft power that is directed against him, but he purposefully set up Russia as a non-ideological state. He said economy. From my point of view, Putin is a leader who is a right-wing liberal, conservative type, something like Cecil Rhodes or Stolypin in Russia in the end of the 19th century, a statesman and a right-wing liberal, free economy, and so forth, so forth. but he has a KGB officer inside him, and he has some traumatizing experience back from St. Petersburg times when he was Sobchak's assistant, who was St. Petersburg mayor at that time. And as they say, he was intensely interacting with criminal structures, and it left a definite mark on him. So these are the three sources that formed his personality. He was asking to join the West with all his might, but then the revolution takes place. Let's say in 2002, when Ukraine officially under President Kuchma is taking the decision to join NATO, with the background of Chechenian campaign and Russia blaming the West for meddling and
Brother, this guy is literally going into autistic detail. I mean, he knows his shoe size. Technically, I think you can Google it. The shoe size.
Supporting Chechenian Mujaheds.
But you
took it extremely painfully. Then the revolution in Georgia happens, in Caucasus, which is a key area. For him, he takes it as a Western, particularly American expansion right in Russia's underbelly. To put it that way, then, the first Maidan in Ukraine, the Orange Maidan, 2004, he takes it as a Western intelligence agencies, in particular American agencies, directed against Russian influence. Then, some time passes, and in 2007, it's his famous München speech, where he declares that he's now enemies with the West. It took him 7 years to get to that point, and they begin planning a definite large-scale special operation against Ukraine. It comprised an entire spectrum of attacks, economic, political, cultural, etc., but they were still not talking about a military decision. Then comes the events in Georgia, 2008. Then, on that background, Ukraine emphatically brings the question before NATO and the collective West about accepting Ukraine into NATO. Bucharest summit in 2010, and the American president at the time says that we accept Ukraine into NATO. But Merkel and Hollande, the leaders of Germany and France, categorically refuse. And Putin understands that this is an issue that he can never be at peace with, that from Ukrainian territory and with Ukraine's help, there will be a systemic threat to Russia's security, at least how he sees this. We can argue how reasonable this is, but I'm just describing the way he sees that. Then
I wonder if that's true, because I've always said, and I kind of agree, that they forced his hand. He needed to do something about NATO and the West. But I wonder how much of the story hasn't been shown or hasn't surfaced.
And the key event was an attempt of Maidan.
Basically, how much was the EU fucking with him?
Done in Russia. It was the Bolotnaya Square, spearheaded by Navalny and other leaders of opposition in 2012, and that scared Putin to death. He understood that this call for revolution as the West's method of action, as they took it, is already inside Russia. Then he turned Russia into an ideological state in order to create an ideology of Russian peace as a software for Russia's expansion. And back then, the decision was taken to take away Crimea, and it went on further. From Putin's point of view, he's carrying out a defense war. I think if we talk psychologically, he holds a deadly grudge against the West because he always wanted to.
I wonder if you guys mind if we can leave the podcast on while I play some Evrima. I do want to find out some more about Zelensky, but this is kind of boring. I still want to find out what information this guy has, because he seems like he's a smart person. I don't know if he's corrupt or not, but he seems like he's a smart person. Also, probably there's going to be a queue.
Them to like him, always wanted to be part of them. He was accepted into G8 and kicked out of G8 from that big 8, and he's still angry, and he's trying to prove it to the West with this whole war that they need to consider him.
Just a second.
And that Russia has real interest that he's honestly defending. This is his mindset, and this is his logic from what I understand. People blame him for supposedly wanting to rebuild the Soviet Union. I don't think so. Rather, he wants to revenge for the Soviet Union's defeat. It's the motivation. And from his point, the West broke the agreement. They're based on the fact that when Gorbachev brought the troops out from Germany, he was promised that the West will not expand, NATO will not expand eastward. But there were 5 waves of expansion, and he was bearing with that still. But when they touched the former SSR countries, Georgia, Moldova, Ukraine, he took it as an intrusion into his area of responsibility. It's the logic of a person who's like in St. Petersburg in the 90s, who took over a marketplace, as we say. So we agreed that this is going to be your territory of influence. This is going to be mine. Then you intrude into my territory of influence, and there must be some response. So from his point of view, he's waging a defense warfare. From his point of view, he has the moral superiority in what he's doing, and he sincerely believes in what he's doing. And at the same time, he finds himself in a very difficult position. And it's been 3.5 years that I'm in big politics, and I continue learning every day. I'm trying to understand what's happening, and new things open up to me every day. My experience has convinced me that the average person thinks that politicians lie when they come to the microphone.
Yes.
But all the experience convinces me that politicians tell pure truth 99% of the time. And when he says that we're not fighting with Ukraine, nor with Ukrainian people, but rather with the Nazi government that took over Ukraine, and Ukrainians are brothers and sisters, as he confirmed today at the conference, he's telling the pure truth. He's truly thinking that way. So it's a complex character with regards to Ukraine and the world, with complex motivation, and I try to express it with maximum precision and the way I understand it, laying down his foundational motives and the way he's looking at the world.
Do you think Putin lies 99% of the time?
No.
He's telling the truth.
I think he tells the truth 99% of the time. When he speaks about key issues, what he mentioned today about 80 kilograms of meat per person per year in Russia, there's a big question where he got those numbers from. But as to his positions, for example, in his interview with Tucker, when he does this long historical, he says what he thinks.
Yeah. So, okay. So let me ask you, when you say he wanted to have a good relationship, he makes the phone call, hey, we're willing to entertain being part of NATO.
Can take this.
And then, okay, let me go check with the people, Clinton, Bush, whoever it is. Hey, we're going to check on the comment. I'm so not right now, maybe later on we do. What do you mean you don't want me to be part of NATO? And then, hey, 9/11 support. I don't like what this happened here. Whatever you need, I defend it. I'm not for terrorism and all that stuff. He's kind of putting his foot down.
I wonder if it's actually the case. Just give me a sec. Oh, it's still kind of fucky. Kind of sucky. This game was kind of good last time. Yeah. Okay, sorry.
But when you say...
Since we're not going to be playing no Evrima, since my computer says no, literally, computer says no.
He wanted to be pro-West, and then now it's against West. Well, the West is who? Who let him down? If you were to give names of people that you think independently, because the West can have 9 leaders. 6 of them were good with Putin, but 3 didn't keep a promise to Putin. Who are the specific people that you think that Putin said, yeah, I don't trust this guy, it's out? Is it the entire system of the West he doesn't trust with how we are? Or is it certain individuals that got him to this point?
For him, main point of orientation is the United States of America and any of their leaders. Why? Because he's measuring the real weight, and he sincerely...
America is the top of the world. Technically still.
Believes that he's stronger than any Western state except the United States. He's stronger than France, Britain, Germany, not to mention Italy and the Baltic countries. And
but is he stronger than all of them together? I would say still yes.
Strategy consists of...
That's why they were so desperate today for upping the defense budget.
Create a situation when he can have a two-sided relationship with any Western country, bypassing over national structures like NATO and ES, because together all the countries of the West are stronger than Putin, but he's stronger than any country separate except the United States. So he's orienting only against the US. For him, Ukraine is a proxy power of the US, and so he's trying to speak over the head and come and negotiate, because again, he repeated today he's not going to talk to Zelensky. For him, the U.S. is the focus of his grudge, attraction, and recognition. It's a very Russian way of thinking. I don't know if you can understand it.
But why, though? But why? Is it a person? Because United States can be 5 different things under 5 different presidents, right? So when you say United States, which specific president, which leader, which regime when you say the West?
Putin lived through 4 U.S. presidents.
It doesn't really matter.
And during this whole time, he has been the president. And today we know that, for example...
Democracy, baby.
The administration, I always underscore that you cannot say United States, collectively the West.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yes,
Right.
Because the administration of Trump's administration and Biden's administration are two different types of West and two different worldviews and systems of motivation. And he understands this.
Biden's America is pretty much Europe's America.
Moreover, he's trying to blame.
And that's why the West, Europe is mainly the problem. He has the issues with NATO.
With it, but he's working with the given. He's a professional
European part of NATO.
Intelligence officer. He's been taught to work with the given. If it's Biden, he works with Biden. If it's Trump, he works with Trump. But he sincerely believes that a country has objective interest independently from the last name of their leader, the size and the geographical location and real geopolitical interest. And he's always trying to appeal to that. So notice his style is real politics. He's always talking about real politics, real interests, and he's offering to act and within those parameters and framework on the television. What did he achieve in this war? He achieved a great success. You remember the debates of Kamala Harris and Trump?
Mm-hmm.
There was a very curious moment in there.
Which
President Trump says that to Kamala that you failed in your negotiations, your talks with Russia. If it had been me, the war would not have started. It's a very free paraphrasing of what took place. So she's losing it for a second, and then she says, in a very free paraphrasing as well, she responds, "Why do we even have to speak to people like Putin and the rest of them?" And that's the thing that Putin always feels, and it touches him.
What is she thinking? The Hollywood thing too hard, like you don't negotiate with terrorists?
Very painfully, and he wants for others to speak to him on the same.
The CIA would beg to differ.
Level, like equals. So his interview with Tucker is his attempt to prove why they need to talk to him as an equal. And he's talking about a multipolarized world, not just the United States, who had usurped the power and were telling everybody else how to live. So in this war, he's posing as the representative of the global South. He tried to put China, India, and BRICS and the Arab world on his side. So he's showing them, like, I'm the person who is capable to stand against the West, this neo-colonism that they're promoting. So he's discussing those terms. For you, I'm the defense against that. And the summit in Kazan, when his political isolation was torn apart and tens of world leaders joined him. So that's the culmination of this war of 2022. He is showing that I managed to be this ram from the global South and to force the West
this guy is talking a lot.
face this new political reality
where
the world is not single polar anymore, and that it doesn't matter who the president of the U.S. is, even though things change after Trump.
Yeah. So to me, I just had rap.
Putin is my opponent, and
this is the
it's
big
an honest
statement.
battle. But internal politics is always dirty, and usually
it's
your best friends are the ones who betray you.
Have you ever spoken to Putin?
No, never spoke with him. We have incompatible ranks.
You've never been. You guys have not spent time together.
No.
Okay, got
never.
It. Well, I'd be curious to know what that looks like. But by the way, going back to
are you corrupt?
What we're talking about with the war. Okay, war starts. It's been chaotic. Bob, if you want to play this clip, here's Putin. Go for it.
Offer to the president-elect Trump when we meet. First of all, I don't know.
I find it very funny. This guy looks a lot like my apartment building caretaker, whatever the fuck his official.
When we will meet, because he doesn't say anything about it. I haven't spoken to him for more than 4 years, and I am ready for it. Of course, at any time. And I will be ready for a meeting if he wants it. Politics is the art of compromise. And we have always said that we are ready for both negotiations and compromises. It is just that the opposite side, in the literal and figurative sense of the word, refuse to negotiate. And we are always ready for this.
To be fair, Europe and Russia have done heinous things. And America. They are just taking the high ground. They are pointing fingers at him because he's recently done some shady shit, and they're just painting him a lot worse than he actually is. I don't know. I don't know the full story of what he does in Russia. A lot of people hate him. A lot of people love him. I am not there. I don't know. But Europe is no angel. They do not need to throw rocks. They live in glass houses. So settle the fuck down.
The result of these negotiations is always...
And if he's actually a monster, which he's pretty much... you're making us sympathize with him because you guys are such big cunts as well. I mean...
Compromise.
Do you believe him?
Yes.
Yeah.
He demonstrates a consistent position since...
By the way, good and evil is just a matter of perspective. Depends on which side of the fence you are.
March 2022, since Istanbul negotiations, and you notice today he said that the basis for us is the Istanbul talks and the real position on the ground, and we are ready for compromises. Putin is a very complex person, but he has two remarkable qualities, real or figurative. In parentheses, he perfectly, impeccably maintains the same line that he announced, and in the eyes of everyone in Europe, everybody he deals with, he stated clear goals, and he showed that he can achieve them by force, but he has not changed the goals. He consistently says the same thing. Istanbul talks, we're ready to talk, and etc. It's more Ukraine, more likely here, that looks like an unpredictable partner that...
Ukraine and Europe are pretty much stifling not only the progress of the whole of Europe, but they're literally killing us.
From one side is showing itself as a victim, as a suffering side. From the other side, Putin, it's making us to look like we are constantly refusing to negotiate. This is what happened today. So he's building a perfect trap. See, the first step, he says, we're ready to talk. Step number two, he says, I'm ready to compete with the West over Kiev and try Oreshnik, which is the mass destruction weapon, and let the Western air defense try to protect them from that. And number three, he says, I'm not going to talk to Zelensky at all. He's not a legitimate leader. If he would...
That sounds like the bit in The Dictator. He's not a legitimate leader. He's not a legitimate leader.
Be reelected, and I'll talk to him. So this is a slap in the face to Zelensky. It's like a red rag. So when Putin says he's not legitimate, how is the West hearing this? Zelensky is a horse who's not even going to participate in the race. Why would we even bet on it? So he receives this emotional trauma, plus this Oreshnik, this threat to Kiev, and they react very sharply. And it's just street cussing and swearing, him and Yermak publishing this, posting this outside of any political relations, even between countries in war, just cursing, swearing. And now Putin says and shows this to this world and says, I'm for peace. I'm ready to go for a compromise. But these people, you can't even talk to them. You can't be negotiating with them. And this is how we look in the eyes of the whole world, because with this whole offer and this provocation, how did we react? Saying bad words, calling him names, which liquidate any possibility of normal talks, even thinking about it, even just a ceasefire. This is why Putin has a very clear position. He took it in the spring of last year. It was corrected since 2022. Zelensky is not a legitimate leader. He's over his time. He does not represent the people of Ukraine. We're ready to talk, but for this, we need compromises. And
well, the law says it's still on. I mean, that's the law.
People in power who are legitimately there, and he has not changed position since then. Since that time, we called him names, got to intrude into Kursk Oblast, and we did many times things that undermine Ukraine's image as the country that really desires peace. Now the Prime Minister of Hungary spoke twice about the Christmas truce and exchanging prisoners of war, and our government very harshly reacted to that, saying nobody authorized Orban to do that. So for Zelensky and his emotional heat, I don't know if he noticed this, but they are painting him as the only public political figure who is against stopping the war. And I am warning them publicly through my direct statements. and I'm sure that they are watching me in Zelensky's office. Look what they're doing to you. They are constantly putting you in a position of people who are against stopping the war. And you're the victim side. Putin, on your background, begins looking like an adequate, reasonable person who is offering peace, of course, on his own conditions.
This is exactly what I said, because they are such big cunts. They're literally making us sympathize with the bad guy.
And achieving what he wants, his goals. But this is a very dangerous road, and he is outplaying us.
You're going to think I'm crazy when I tell you this, but the last 13 and a half years, I've been working on my...
Good for you.
Answer the question. So
I need to be very sensitive because I don't want to set
totally
these
get it,
people up.
and I'm not looking for a name, but I totally get it. So because there's a difference between directly and indirectly, right?
If you want this type of an answer, I have an answer. It's information from Zelensky's closest circle. This is the maximum precision I can give you in an answer.
I'm not going to ask any more than that. That's all I'm looking for. So it is directly. It's not somebody tells somebody.
If you use those terms directly, indirectly, I'll speak directly.
Directly. Okay, good. Right. Specifically. So that's good. Now, so if it's directly, you're hearing it from him. So in this context, if this thing was to accelerate, and let's just say war, they compromise, Trump goes there, they're done, they're good to go, the war is done. How soon will you be returning to run for president?
Immediately.
Well, the mood in Ukraine is such that there will be immediately a whole set of key issues that are impossible to resolve without elections, stopping the martial law, mobilization, opening the borders, because we're a country with closed borders, and many families have been split for 3 years. Every third, fourth Ukrainian person is outside the country. Many times husbands haven't seen their wives and children for many years. This is why it cannot be resolved without...
Unfortunately, a lot will never see their families again.
Elections, and I think within a month or two, there will be a question brought up about stopping martial law and going into the peaceful state.
Okay. So next question for you is, I had some friends that were there who are friendly with some of the military leaders. Okay. And story comes out, it's all over the place. I'm sure you've seen it as well. On the money that's being given with the level of corruption, okay, a lot of money's gone there, okay? And you'll hear stories, okay? Aid given to Ukraine. Mortal shell scandal, January 2024, this year ago. Ukraine Security Service, SBU, uncovered a corruption scheme in nearly 100,000 mortar shells amounting to $40 million. The scheme involved senior officials from the Ministry of Defense and an arms supplier with funds transferred abroad without any shells being delivered. That's one. Two, embezzlement of logistics officers. In November of 2024, the SPU exposed a corruption scheme of 2 Ukrainian Army logistics officers. They defrauded the state of $27.3 million, approximately $700,000 through a network of shell companies diverting funds meant for military use. 3.
What did I just talk about at the beginning of the stream and yesterday?
Agrarian and Economical Ministry officials in August of 2023, about 16 months ago, the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine, NABU, uncovered a
It's corrupt, same as it was in Romania. My mom works for the government, and she was at the what do you call it? The governmental body that governs and checks up on corruption, internal corruption in the government. They were corrupt. My mom worked for them, and they found out that the leader was corrupt. I'm pretty sure that's the case in all of Europe.
$0.6 million embezzlement scheme involving the first deputy minister of agrarian policy and food and a former deputy minister. They were charged with the power abuse and embezzling state fund designated for humanitarian aid. Military catering scandal. Earlier in 2023, there were reports about inflated prices for food meant for Ukrainian troops, leading to the resignation of junior defense minister. The scandal involved buying goods like eggs and potatoes at well above market rates, suggesting a kickback system was in place.
What happens in the rest of Europe? This is export-import tax for no fucking reason. This is the same thing Western Europe is doing with us since forever, since Ceausescu got taken out of power. Not by us only, but the West and America as well. They literally, I'm pretty sure they had a hand in it. And everything that's good in our country is exported to the West. We get their shitty products imported here at double the prices. Why? Because that's democracy, baby.
Last one, procurement fraud. In January of 2023, another high-profile case involved the dismissal of Vasil Zelensky, a deputy infrastructure minister, was caught allegedly receiving a $400,000 bribe for rigging procurement tenders for equipment like generators. Do you believe Zelensky has gotten any of the money that's been given to Ukraine?
Yes.
Whether he personally received corrupt money, to clarify the question?
Even if he is not corrupt and he is not making money on the side, he is still benefiting from all the power and all the luxuries that being the president gives you.
So, for example, somebody can work for my company and they can be my, I don't know, executive assistant, let's just say. And with my contacts, they can have one company that is going to be a $100,000 job I do, that they're my contact. They can go find another person and they'll do $120,000, but the $20,000 more, they'll say, pay it to my wife. So the paper trail is not to them. Do you think there was any corruption?
Yes, I told you that. A wife, a husband, a daughter, any.
Formulate this way. Most of the cases that you were naming are happening in the realm of national defense and security, which is the direct area of responsibility of our President Zelensky as the commander-in-chief, according to the laws and constitution of Ukraine. This is his direct area of
Would you look at that?
responsibility. He carries full responsibility for everything that happens then, especially in a country that is in a state of war.
I'm asking a specific question. So let me restate my question. This is a very important question for you to answer. And if you
do you think he took money?
Answer it in a way, it's catastrophic for him, right? Do you know the answer? You don't have to answer it if you don't want to. Do you know the answer whether money ended up flowing to him through a shell account or other people, where people on the inside have said, Alexei, listen, everybody here knows how much money this guy's making. Every time we give him 40 billion, 20 billion, 10 billion, 5 billion, there's so many other accounts, shell accounts, that he has money that's going to overseas and all this other stuff. Do you directly or indirectly know that he's gotten paid from all the money that other countries have given to him?
I'm answered with maximum precision. I do not have information that he received money from corruption scandals, but I can tell you for sure that the level of corruption is off the charts, catastrophical.
With him or with his people?
And people surrounding him in the zone that he's responsible for.
Does that benefit him or it benefits his people?
At a minimum, it benefits the people who are surrounding him.
Okay, but that's not benefiting him.
I do not have such.
I would 99% guarantee that he's taken money.
Much information. Okay. But he carries full responsibility for what is happening in his area of responsibility for the level.
Even if he's not taking money, if all the other guys are taking the money away from him, he is still responsible.
Of corruption that is happening there, and the measures that he's undertaking, to put it mildly, I find them unsatisfactory.
Okay. Let me go another thing here. When you think about your country, Ukraine, natural resources, plenty. It's a beautiful place, a lot of incredible natural resources that a lot of people are interested in, that they want. Russia. When you think about the number one country in the world in natural resources, it's Russia. $75 trillion of natural resources. A lot of these big companies want to get into Russia, right? There's a concept called economic.
I wonder why Europe doesn't want Russia to make deals with the rest of the world. I wonder why.
Hitman. I don't know if you're familiar with this author. He was a guy that wrote a book on economic hitman. He comes to your country. He says, I'm going to bring some companies and they're going to invest $10 billion in your country. When they do, that's what he used to do. This man right here, John Perkins, was an economic hitman. He would go to different countries and he would tell them, we're going to come here. We're going to do this. We're going to put $10 billion into your country. If you don't, we're going to do something to you. And on the back end, sometimes they pay these people, right? story comes out on rebuilding Ukraine, right? Rob, if you can pull up the story. Rebuilding Ukraine, $400 billion. I think it's Chase and I want to say BlackRock, $400 billion. Is this the one? Zelensky BlackRock announced new investment initiative to rebuild Ukraine. And can you do Control F400 to see if it goes to it? There you go. Ukraine established a program to attract up to $400 billion in foreign investments to target various areas of the economy, from clean energy to defense to natural resources. Zelensky believes this is the greatest opportunity in Europe since World War II. Do you?
Brother, that reeks of corruption. And mind you, this also happened before in Eastern Europe and in Russia. A lot of times in the past when earthquakes or other calamities destroyed buildings, they used that excuse to level even more buildings and make a beautiful commie block or in Eastern Europe or whatever the fuck they wanted to build.
You think the motive of others.
And there's conspiracies that maybe wars, maybe other whatever the fuck have been caused to destroy the buildings.
Not Zelensky.
It's not a new idea.
Let's set his motive aside. Do you think there's a motive of others to have war because now they can raise money and come in and build infrastructure and make more money? Do you think there's profit?
Oh, that's part of the military-industrial complex. You sell the ammunition, you sell the weapons, you destroy, and then you build. And then you take the weapons and you put them on the black market more.
As a motive to have this war and continue the war.
From whose side? Our side, Ukrainian side? Or U.S. side?
Not from his side, from not even the American side, from the banking and the financial sector.
I don't think that they arranged the war, but they definitely use its results, that's for sure.
They're profiting off of it.
Okay, so then that's still your position is more noble. They didn't promote the war, but if it happens, hey guys, let's capitalize. We're going to go make a bunch of money.
Why
and let's
not?
make
Of course,
the
why not?
Okay, I got you. Okay, so that's interesting that you're saying that. That's good to know for us. Now, I heard a story that in 2022, Boris Johnson, if I'm not mistaken, came there, and there was a conversation that there was a 90% chance of a peace deal. But Boris Johnson informed Zelensky to not reach a peace deal with Putin and Russia because the West would not support the type of peace deal. Is this a true story with Boris Johnson and Zelensky?
I was a participant of the negotiations group. On March 29 in Istanbul, we signed an agreement. We come back to Ukraine on April 1st. And 1st, 2nd April, the 2nd, I believe, the Bucha tragedy is discovered. Then on April 9th, there was supposed to be a meeting of Putin and Zelensky, at which time the ceasefire was supposed to take place and open talks. Johnson came either the 4th or the 3rd. I don't remember exactly. I need to check on that date. And Rahamia, the head of the parliamentary majority of the ruling party, Zelensky's party, directly in an interview said that, yes, Johnson was the person who said, continue the war. That's his words. I do not know why he said that. Probably wanted to shift the responsibility over to the West. We have a tendency to do that, but I was not present at the meeting with Johnson. I did not receive information from Johnson. I don't have any direct testimony, people who could testify to that. One thing I can say that the talks within Istanbul format
to gamble with the innocent lives. Technically innocent, most likely not.
Continued until May 17, meaning another month and a half after that. They still were discussing them. And Rammstein, for example, was only on April 26 when the first coalition met for the first time by the Minister of Defense of the U.S., Austin, who brought armament for Ukraine. What exactly happened? If you're interested, I can tell you what I think.
Because I'm looking at the timeline here. February 1st, 2022, Johnson travels to Kiev.
Yeah, he came on the 9th when there was supposed to be a meeting between Zelensky and Putin. It was planned and it was disrupted by the Bucha crisis.
Well, why do you do this? What's the reasoning to?
I think it was not only Johnson doing this. I think there were corresponding signals from Biden.
There are obviously ways for them to profiteer off this. I mean, obviously, some way, shape, form or another, they're profiteering. That's the reason.
Biden's administration.
Which is
I don't
monstrous.
know, but I think so, because Johnson as an argument wouldn't be enough. The main orientation is obviously, of course, the position of the American country. For us, it was most probably something along the lines of, okay, Putin is losing the war. His invasion has been thwarted. We're going to help you out. So,
busy that day. Nate, I did not blow up Nord Stream. Thank you, though.
Me? No, I did not blow it up.
You personally may have an alibi, but the CIA has no such alibi.
Do you have evidence that NATO or the CIA did it?
I don't remember. Does he?
You know, I won't get into details, but people always say in such cases, look for someone who is interested.
Yeah.
But in this case,
who would profit off of this?
We should not only look for someone who is interested, but also for someone who has capabilities. Because there may be many people interested, but not all of them are capable of sinking to the bottom of the Baltic Sea and carrying out this explosion. These two components should be connected. Who is interested and who is capable of doing it?
But I'm confused. I mean, that's the biggest act of industrial terrorism ever, and it's the largest emission of CO2 in history. Okay, so if you had evidence, and presumably given your security services, your intel services, you would, that NATO, the US, CIA, the West did this, why wouldn't you present it and win a propaganda victory?
He does in Russia. There's a lot of propaganda.
In the war of propaganda, it is very difficult to defeat the United States because the United States controls all the world's media and many European media.
I think he's wrong here. I don't remember when this interview took place, but I'm pretty sure America has been infiltrated by European corruption.
The ultimate beneficiary of the
Biden administration is a testament to that.
Biggest European media are American financial institutions.
Right,
Don't
you
you know
stop it
that?
at this point.
I have a different explanation.
I love that the guy looks, not this guy, the other guy, I keep forgetting his name, Tucker Carlson. He looks worried and
Because
confused at the same time.
actions against the main member of the union of the ES, who is going to announce it, even if it was a victory?
Who's going to finance it then?
I have no idea. No, announce it. Tucker was asking Putin why this is the largest act of terrorism, why is nobody claiming it as their victory? And Putin explaining, because it's all controlled by the media, and I'm saying because it's an action against the largest member of the NATO, so nobody's going to announce it, even if it actually took place.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, it's catastrophic, whoever does. And whoever does, 2-3 countries are going to be tied. So there's going to be 2-3 criminals, maybe more, and the level of credibility being lost. They will protect that and use propaganda to blame somebody else. And that game is still being with NATO.
Your game of politics.
Yes, I think we will win. I will win.
Really?
Yes.
Really? Who will want you? Think about world leaders. Who would want a leader like you replacing Zelensky? Would the West want you?
I do not know.
Would Russia want you?
Possibly for Russia.
The West, given the fact that they're so corrupt, I don't think they would want him. If he has any type of spine on him, he is not wanted. That's why they hate the guy from Poland. I admire the guy. He is literally for the people, for his country. He doesn't give a fuck about Europe. He doesn't give a fuck about NATO. He is going to take the sanctions and he's going to do what's best for the country and for the people. I love that. Every country should strive to be like that.
Russia would be the most comfortable negotiator, because I'm the only Ukrainian politic who says that Russia has some real interest as a country, regardless of the last name of their president, Putin, Navalny, or Ivanov. I recognize them. I'm a real politic. Russia as a state, regardless of who the president is, has real interest, and you cannot not consider them. We have 3,000 kilometers of land and sea border that we share. We're neighbors. We were part of the same state. We grew up from the same
it's
root.
better for everyone to be
are
diplomatic.
predestined to live together. We need normal relationship with Russia, normal, that are regulated so that the war cannot repeat. And the key irritant for Russia is joining NATO. And it doesn't matter if it's Putin or any other president. It doesn't matter the last name of their leader. It's Russia's interest. And
I'm pretty sure I've heard that if Putin dies, the other guy that's going to come after him is even worse.
moreover, I know for sure that NATO does not even intend to receive us. They're just teasing us about receiving, but they will never let us join. It has been, and that role was involving, I don't know if it was her task or not, but overall, the task of these people was to make a trap out of Ukraine.
Oh, look at the guy. I was just speaking about it.
Like second Afghanistan for Russia. Yeah. And we got in trouble with this trap for getting our own real interest, and we could have avoided getting in trouble.
You got a lot of moving parts that you have to go through, and people that are also supporting you. We had Dominik Tarczynski on from Poland. Okay, he was a Polish parliament, I think, and then he was also part of NATO or UN. He was part of UN as well, if I'm not mistaken. Member of the European Parliament, EU, member of the European Parliament, and he was a Polish politician. We had him on, did an interview, 25 million views, all the clips combined. And then we had him on our election night when he was there. Everybody wants him to be the president of Poland now. You know, they want him to run in March, April, because this guy's like...
He's doing good. I wonder why.
Exposure to English-speaking audiences got people more interested in supporting him, saying, here's the... And that's kind of helping as well. So for you...
No, his actions make him likable.
Where you're going, you know, I'd be curious to know if you're going to take that route and be doing more of these types of conversations, especially at a time like this, because let's just say this does come to an end when Trump and them meet and there's peace. Let's say then you're comfortable to go back and you start campaigning and you're speaking openly all over the place. Momentum rises saying, here's somebody that can...
Yeah, we got it. I'm literally falling asleep. Let's maybe give this a quick watch too.
Yeah.
Great to have you guys involved. And David, thank you very much for coming on.
What are they investing in?
David is sort of the king of intellect in that world.
I'm interested if he's going to say anything about the Ukraine.
Today, Taiwan Semiconductor is announcing that they will be investing at least $100 billion in new capital in the United States over the next short period of time.
$100 billion?
To build state-of-the-art semiconductor manufacturing facilities.
That's big money.
It's going to be in Arizona, which is what I understand, which is a great state. I like it because I won it, but I won most of them actually. But I did. We won it, and we won it big. The most powerful AI chips in the world will be made right here in America. And it'll be a big percentage of the chips made by his company. But as you know, they're based mostly in Taiwan. And they're far and away the biggest. There's nobody even close. This $100 billion in new investment will go into building 5 cutting-edge fabrication facilities in the great state that we just discussed, Arizona, and will create thousands of jobs, many thousands of jobs. And they're high-paying jobs. In total, today's announcement brings Taiwan Semiconductor investments to about $165 billion they've started already. Among the largest foreign direct investments in the United States, Apple, as you know, made a big announcement last week of $500 billion, and we have some others that have announced. We have many that want to announce, but I don't have time to do all of these announcements, I tell you. But for you, I'm doing the announcement.
Thank you.
For this will create hundreds of billions of dollars in
this opportunity to announce our big project in the U.S. TSMC.
This guy's legs always look like he's sitting like this, like the anime girl.
Is the world's largest chip manufacturing, funded by Dr. Morris Chen in 1987. It's now at the forefront of semiconductor technology, supporting AI advancement and industry growth. In fact,
they are literally making the whole world's chips.
Of
course.
One back
and
this
is the guy
that
the best.
2020, we have to thank President Trump's vision
a lot of money
and his support.
That's
right. TSMC start the journey of establishing the advanced chip manufacturing in Arizona. And now,
Jackie Chan.
let me proudly say, now the vision become reality. In Phoenix, Arizona, with 3,000 employees, we are producing the most advanced chip made on U.S. soil. With the success of our first fab, so we are now very happy to announce we are going to invest additional $100 billion in addition to our current $65 billion investment.
Ooh, that's big
in
money.
Arizona. We are going to build
That's big money.
3 more new fabs after we promised the 3 fabs
big
already,
money.
and another 2 very advanced packaging fab, and most important, R&D center.
Not tired of winning
also in Arizona.
Arizona.
For this, all the investment, $165 billion,
Damn.
is going to create thousands of the high-paid jobs, as the president just announced.
He goes, yeah, that's
And
right.
we are, most important, actually, we are going to produce
a $6 billion grant, and that encouraged them to build $65 billion. So America gave TSMC 10% of the money to build here. And now you're seeing the power of Donald Trump's presidency, because TSMC, the greatest manufacturer of chips in the world.
I do believe that Trump is doing a lot of great things. I do believe that his everyone that's surrounding him are doing great. But this guy is just the best professional ass kisser. He makes that thing shine. That's how much he kisses
World
it.
is coming to America with $100 billion investment. And
He almost seems like he's a shady motherfucker that's gonna be backstabby as fuck.
of course, that is backed by
That's
the
how much
fact
he ass
that
kisses.
they can come here because they can avoid paying tariffs. So
There
the
it
idea
is.
is come to America, build
That's
greatness
his favorite
in America.
word. Remember
build
that one?
For the American customers,
Fourth.
Apple, NVIDIA, that whole list that Chairman Wei gave in order to bring production to America. So we're really, really excited. This continues the most incredible path you've ever seen.
Yes.
But it'll get
Good
bigger
job.
and bigger with time.
25,000.
Knowing this gentleman, it'll get bigger and bigger. There'll be no stopping him.
All right.
President, what
Yeah,
more?
Brian, go ahead.
In addition to the jobs, you talked about national security, and that's one thing I think a lot of Americans at home don't understand. Explain the national
know
security
Ukraine.
aspect.
Because they're
of
not
this.
getting made in
Well, without
China.
the chips and semiconductors, nothing runs today.
Yeah.
You can't buy a car without them. You can't get a radio, a television, nothing. You can't get anything. And we thought it was very important.
I don't know if I'm mistaken, but I've heard a normal car has about 300 chips in it.
Obviously,
Proof?
business-wise, but we thought even in terms of national security to have this large
TSMC's are in the
percentage
US.
of the
Yeah, I know.
chips, semiconductors,
an
and other
additional
things that
investment.
they make, the most important product. And not a product that you can really copy. It takes years and years. You know, on the needle of a pin is total genius. I mean, they can put things, I mean, something the size of the needle, the point of a pin, they put information that is just not even believable. So if you would see this, it's just really
Jesus.
something. Yes,
One
Brian?
more
Settle the
aspect to
fuck
that.
down.
Honda announced they're coming to Indiana because of the tariffs. Once again,
That's
you're
right.
bringing additional jobs in manufacturing. You want to comment on that as well?
Well, Honda's coming, and I told you about Apple that they're going to be starting to build massively here, $500 billion. And we have many other companies going to be announced, but we had many that have already announced. And no, it's going to be great. It's looking really strong. I don't think to a country.
What do you say?
The speech you probably heard about it tomorrow night, so I'll let you know tomorrow night. But no, I don't think so. I think it's a great deal for us because Biden
why would it
very
be?
foolishly, stupidly, frankly,
Biden
gave $300 billion and $350 billion more accurately
not again.
to a country to
Biden's stupid.
fight and to
Big
try
dumb.
and do things. And you know what happened? We get nothing. We get nothing. Just gave it. We could have rebuilt our entire
goodness
U.S.
of his
Navy
heart.
with $350 billion. Think of it, $350 billion.
Jesus.
We could have rebuilt our U.S. Navy. So he gave it away as fast as the money could be gone.
Wow.
And what we're doing is getting that all back and a lot more than that. And what we need, it's very important for...
Wait a minute, if Zelensky doesn't want to have peace with Russia, then does that mean that he doesn't want to... Because he didn't sign the agreement to give the land or the minerals or whatever the fuck they agreed to. So does that mean the peace treaty is off? He's not going to want to side with America at all? They don't selling the fact that they want America to back them up, but do they really want to give them what they want? America, that is. If America doesn't help, they not get any of the minerals because they already paid. Technically, the mineral deal was about to pay off what they already have been paid, and some.
This business that we're talking about here with chips and semiconductors and everything else, we need rare earths.
I would expect them to be petty.
And the deal we have is we have the finest rare earths.
What do you need to see from President Zelensky to restart these negotiations?
Well, I just think he should be more appreciative.
Stop. Goodwill.
Because this country has stuck with them through thick and thin. We've given them much more than Europe, and Europe should have given more than us, because as you know, that's right there. That's
much more than they deserve.
It's the border.
Nothing.
This country really was like the fence on the border. It was very important to Europe, and I'm not knocking Europe. I'm saying that they were a lot smarter than Joe Biden, because Joe Biden didn't have a clue. He just gave money hand over fist. And they should have been able to equalize with us. In other words,
that's how it seems like. But I'm pretty sure they had deals. I'm pretty sure people in Biden's family got some money. Like, they covered each other's asses nicely with cash.
We gave $1. They should have given. Well, we gave $350 billion. They probably gave $100. But on top of it all, they get their money back because they're doing it in the form of a loan, and it's a secured loan. So when I saw that, which I've known about for a little...
If Ukraine is not going to be a country anymore when the war is ended, who's going to pay back the billions?
A little while. I said it's time for us to be smart. At the same time...
If they're not going to have a country anymore, where is the money coming from?
It's great for them because they get us in the country taking the rare earth, which is going to fuel this big engine, and especially the engine that we've in a very short time created. And we get something, and we're there. We have a presence there. With all of that being said, I want one thing to happen. I want all of those young people to stop being killed. They're being killed by the thousands every single week. Last week, 2,700 were killed. 2,700 young, in this case, just about all young boys.
Isn't it interesting how the fucking president from across the ocean cares more about their people than their president?
From Ukraine and from Russia. And
it's the same in all of Europe, by the way. It's not something specific to Ukraine.
And that's not young people from the United States, but it's on a human basis.
And
I want to see it
Trump
stop.
Again.
The money is one thing, but the death. And they're losing thousands of soldiers a week.
And it can fucking escalate to a nuclear war. It can literally just, Pripyat can go boom anytime now.
Week. And that's not including the people that get killed every time a town goes down or a missile goes into a town. And I want to see it stop. Yes.
Are you considering canceling military aid to Ukraine? And can we get a reaction to what the Prime Minister said, that your administration is bringing U.S. worldview in alignment with Moscow's?
So this is a deal that should have never happened. This is a deal that would have never happened. And it didn't happen for 4 years. It didn't happen. It was never even close to happening. If I were president, would not have happened. And October 7th would have happened, would not have happened in Israel. And inflation wouldn't have happened. And Afghanistan, disastrous, the way they withdrew. Not the fact that they withdrew, but the way they withdrew would have never happened. And we would have had Bagram right now instead of China having it. It was 1 hour away from where China makes their nuclear weapons. We would have kept Bagram, with one of the biggest air bases in the world. All of these things happened, and it's a shame. But it is what it is, and now we're here. I want to see it end fast. I don't want to see this go on for years and years. Now, President Zelensky supposedly made a statement today in AP. I'm not a big fan of AP, so maybe it was an incorrect statement, but he said he thinks the war's going to go on for a long time. And he better not be right about that. That's
disgusting.
This project, could this minimize the impact to the U.S. with chips should China decide to isolate Taiwan or China decide to take Taiwan?
At this rate, the Ukraine is going to look like the moon.
Well, it's a very interesting point. It's a great question, actually, but this would certainly, I can't say minimize. That would be a catastrophic event, obviously. Yeah. But it will at least give us a position where we have, in this very, very important business, we would have a very big part of it in the United States. So it would have a big impact if something should happen with Taiwan.
Russia sanctions. Are you looking at relieving Russian sanctions if there is a peace deal?
Well, we're going to make deals with everybody to get this war, including Europe and European nations. And they've acted very well. You know, they're good people. I know most of them are friends of mine. The heads of state, the heads of the various countries, prime ministers from the different. I got four prime ministers and 5 presidents called me over the last 2 days, and they want to work it out. They want to get it worked out. And I think they're also, you know, they're talking money, but the money is less important than the deaths. We're talking thousands of young people a week. And people would say, why do I care about Ukraine? Young people, why do I care about, and not all young, but they're pretty young. You know, Ukraine is running a little bit low. And
they're dying for no reason. And the Illuminati basically want this to happen, right? The Illuminati is in Europe. Soros is the Illuminati. This is the plan, baby.
They're getting older. They're recruiting older people. It's a very, very sad thing that's happening over there, and we want to get it finished. We want to stop the
Biden
death.
administration pushed them to recruit younger.
On the tariffs, is there any room left for Canada and Mexico to make a deal before midnight? And should we expect those Chinese tariffs, the extra 10%, to take effect
No room
tomorrow?
left for Mexico or for Canada.
They're
no, the
done.
tariffs, you know, they're all set.
That's right.
They go into effect tomorrow.
Mr. President, just to follow up on my
No
colleague's
more
question.
tacos.
And just so you understand,
No more
vast
maple
amounts
syrup.
of fentanyl have poured into
It's
our country
over.
from Mexico, and as you know, also from China, where it goes to Mexico and goes to Canada, and China also had an additional 10, so it's 10 plus 10, and it comes in from Canada and it comes in from Mexico, and that's a very important thing to say. Yeah, please go ahead.
Have you decided if you're going to suspend military aid to Ukraine? Have you made that decision?
Well, I haven't even talked about that right now. I mean, right now, we'll see what happens. A lot of things are happening right now as we speak.
He's never going to say what he
literally
does.
as we speak. I could give you an answer and go back to my office, the beautiful Oval Office. I could go back into the Oval Office and find out that the answer is obsolete. It's like his business. It's obsolete. You come up with a new chip and it's obsolete about 2 minutes later, right? But that's what's good about his business. That's why he's the only one that's successful in it. But
Just to follow up my colleague's question from Russia saying that your foreign policy is largely in line with their vision, should that be concerning to Americans?
Said what?
Russia
Should that be
paying
concerning to
Trump.
Americans?
Read the statement.
That Russia says that your administration's foreign policy is, quote, largely in line with their vision.
Well, I'll tell you what, I think it takes 2 to tango, and you're going to have to.
Russia pretty much always wanted cooperation. I mean, I scratch your back, you scratch mine. Good and bad, again, is a matter of perspective. It's just as easy as that.
Make a deal with Russia, and you're going to have to make a deal with Ukraine. You're going to have the assent, and you're going to have the consent from the European nations, because I think that's important, and from us. I think everybody has to get into a room, so to speak, and we have to make a deal. And the deal can be made very fast. It should not be that hard a deal to make. It could be made very fast. Now, maybe somebody doesn't want to make it.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe somebody doesn't want to. Maybe someone is about to eat some dick. Maybe somebody like Zelensky should be kept out of the room.
Make a deal. And if somebody doesn't want to make it,
just knock him out, put his fingerprint on the document. That's the stupid person signing. And he signed the agreement. We good.
deal. I think that person won't be around very long. That person will not be listened to very long. because I believe that Russia wants to make a deal. I believe certainly the people of Ukraine want to make a deal. They've suffered more than anybody else. We talk about suffering. They've suffered. But if you think about it, under President Bush, they got Georgia, right? Russia got Georgia. Under President Obama, they got a nice big submarine base.
Crimea?
A nice big chunk of land where they have their submarines. You know that, right?
Yeah.
Crimea. Under President Trump, they got nothing. And under President Biden, they tried to get the whole thing. They tried to get the whole big
They're
Ukraine,
trying to get it because Biden is
If I didn't
asleep.
get in here, they would have got.
People really don't like this, but a lot of world leaders respect Trump. They know he's not a person to be fucked around with. He will missile the fuck out of you.
Gotten the whole thing. So,
Biden.
I can only say, you can go back to Bush, you can go back to Obama, and go back to Biden. They took a lot.
Trying to
The only
sneak
one
one
they didn't
over
get,
on him.
You know what I gave them? I gave them anti-tank missiles. That's what I gave them.
The javelins.
I gave them.
you said that 50 times.
Sanctions on Russia. On Russia. I gave them javelins. You know the javelins? You know when they took out all those tanks? You know the tanks were heading to Kiev by the hundreds, and they were unstoppable. And I gave them javelins. So, you know, I really, Putin is the one that will tell you this has not been so good for them. The fact is that I just want fairness. I want fairness. But think of it. I gave Russia nothing except grief. I gave them nothing. I gave them sanctions and javelins. That's what I gave them. Obama gave them sheets, and you heard that statement before. It's a very famous. Trump gave them javelins, and Obama gave them sheets, and then they say how close I am to Russia. Let me tell you, we have to make a deal because there are a lot of people being killed that shouldn't be killed.
It doesn't matter. Haters are going to hate. You can be Jesus, and they're still going to be hating on you if you believe in Jesus.
But remember, Trump gave them nothing, and the other presidents gave them a lot. They gave them everything.
You met with Argentine President Javier Milei at CPAC. He wants to sign a free trade agreement with the United States. Is that something that you would consider even with Argentina
I'll
or any other
consider
country?
anything. And Argentina, I think he's great, by the way. I think he's a great leader. He's doing a great job. He's doing
That's
a
that
fantastic
guy.
job. Brought it back from oblivion.
He did a crypto thing.
Yeah, well, look at things. We're looking
He
at the
gave
UK
Elon
with
a
things. It doesn't
chainsaw.
have to be tariffs, but
It's a crypto
tariffs
country.
are easy. They're fast. They're efficient.
Rogue president.
So
and they bring
stupid.
fairness. For instance,
Really?
when
He did
people
a
kill
Ponzi?
their dollar, their equivalent of the
Rug
dollar,
pull?
whether it's the yuan or the yen in Japan or the yuan in China, when they drop them down, that puts us at a very
What is the
unfair
world coming to?
disadvantage. So all I have to do is say, Howard, we're going to.
It's almost like the narrative of the world, of life itself, does not want us to get killed by the AI in 2029 or 2030. So they're speed running to kill ourselves, basically.
We're going to have to raise the tariffs a little bit because I've called President Xi, I've called the leaders of Japan to say you can't continue to reduce and break down your currency. You can't do it because it's unfair to us. It's very hard for us to make tractors, Caterpillar, here when Japan, China, and other places are killing their currency, meaning driving it down. So all of these things add up. And the way you solve it very easily is with tariffs, because when they do that, instead of having to make phone calls every day like I used to do with certain leaders, President Xi a little bit, a lot of phone calls, talking about the fact that they're lowering their yuan, they're lowering it down, and that makes it very, very hard for us. So this way I just say, look, let them do that, and we make up for it with the tariffs. But
Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum about her
yeah,
today?
sure, I will. I have a lot of respect
I
for
agree.
her. I have a lot of respect for her. Are you?
It's always better for you to be in charge than to let some other retard be in charge.
Effect. It'll be 20% on China now. How high are you willing to go against China?
Well, I can't
Does
say.
this
It depends
affect-
on what they do with their currency.
Like,
it depends on what they do
like
in terms
Genshin
of a
Impact?
retaliation with some kind of an economic
Technically, it should.
retaliation, which I don't think they're going to retaliate too much. Hey, look, the United States has been taken advantage of for 40 years. The United States has been a laughingstock for years and years.
Bro, League of Legends have been. It wasn't the last skin a $500 skin. What's with plus tariff?
Years. That's why
Nobody
this gentleman
knows.
is built in Taiwan instead of building here. It would have been better if he built here. If we had a president that knew what they were doing, and we had a lot of them very bad on trade. Look, I'm a huge fan of Ronald Reagan, but he was bad on trade, very bad on trade. He allowed a lot of people, a lot of businesses to be taken. So I say that with due respect because he was so great on other things, but he was bad on trade. We are setting records right now, records like nobody has ever seen before.
Wow.
When you have companies like
Billions
this
and
coming
billions.
in, and almost 40% of their company in one signature is going to be devoted to what he does, which is one of the most important businesses in the world. That's an unbelievable thing. When Apple now is going to start building all of their plants here, all because of
I wonder how fast even is Apple in the UK at all? I wonder.
what we've
Because
done.
the UK government, you guys know what the UK government did. They want access to spy on Apple users.
Well, what
in
about the
terms
child
of-
laborers? What are
it's
they
not
going to
because
do?
he likes me or they like me. They don't probably
They have
like
to go
me
back
at
to
all. I
school?
don't know. I think he likes me a little bit at least.
You don't have to like me,
But you know what? It's the incentive we
but you are going to
created,
respect me.
or the negative incentive. I mean, it's going to be very costly for people to take advantage of this country. They can't come in and steal our money and steal our jobs and take our factories and take our businesses and expect not to be punished. And they're being punished by tariffs.
You know what? This reminds me of a little video I saw in the UK where an elderly lady was using the neighbor's Wi-Fi and he found out and he put a password on it. And she went to his door and started to berate him because he took away her Wi-Fi and she got used to having Wi-Fi. He needs to give her the password or take the password off because she needs to use his Wi-Fi. Imagine the entitlement and the moronicness of that person.
It's a very powerful weapon
This is exactly
that
what's going on
politicians
with
haven't
the rest of
used
the world
because
in
they were either
America.
dishonest, stupid, or paid off in some other form. And now we're using them.
Damn.
Have you spoken with President Xi about this term?
I don't want to tell you that. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
He should have said next.
Thank you very much.
Nobody knows.
Will people who don't respond to the
Dude,
emails
Brother or sister, shut the fuck up.
be fired?
He's so happy. Oh man,
Big
that's so
money.
funny.
Big opportunities.
Wow, it's like, yeah. You guys are being played, are we? I don't know. I mean, like 25 million jobs seems like a good thing. Oh, get out of here, Baldy. Get out of here. Get the hell out of here. What the hell are you doing in here? Get the fuck out of here. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Ow.
Oh, old ass man. What the fuck?
That brings back memories, Jesus Christ. All the way back to the 90s. Okay, brothers, I'm literally going to fall asleep any moment now. I'm going to take myself, I'm going to eat my lasagna, then I'm going to go straight to bed, and probably if I feel good enough, I'm going to start streaming in the morning. I'm going to see you guys in the next one either way. Take care, have a good one. Hopefully you guys are not going to fight in the war. Fight to not fight. So fight to not fight. You youngsters. Technically, I'm a youngster too, but apparently on the internet, I'm 1,000 years old. So, Asmod is actually bolder than me. Balder and bolder. Maybe not bolder. Anyway, see you guys in the next one. Have a good one. And take care of yourselves. Peace, brothers. Peace.